Chapter 1031. Old Wu angrily expressed his loyalty to Ning Fan with the information he had just obtained. Ning Fan, however, did not say a word. He glanced at the information and put it aside. Then, he continued to meditate with his legs crossed and closed his eyes to rest. Sha Bai Lu, the first disciple of great Emperor Lu Tuo and the person who stopped him from saving people at the slave market, if Ning Fan had met Sovereign Slayer before, he might have to be wary of Sha Bai Lu because his cultivation base was sealed. However, now that he had the extra reward of Sovereign Slayer, he no longer put Sha Bai Lu in his eyes. If this person really comes to find trouble with him in the second round of the mausoleum seizing competition, he would certainly not show any mercy. Instead of worrying about this matter, it would be better for him to focus on recovering his mental strength that he had lost in the blood martial arena. He really did not have enough time. He really did not have the time to spare for such trivial matters. Even some important matters were delayed because of the conflict with participating in the blood martial arena. Ning Fan dismissed the nagging old Wu. When he was alone, he took out a name card which had lost its spiritual light and smiled bitterly. The invitation card of the ancient Buddha meeting, it was an invitation from Great Emperor Tiandu. The place where the ancient Buddha meeting would be held seemed to be somewhere in Liuli City. The time of the meeting was coincidentally 3 days before the second round, which clashed with the time of the blood martial arena. Originally, Ning Fan also had some interest in the ancient Buddha meeting. However, for the sake of the innate soul-nourishing spiritual medicine, he naturally had to give up on participating in it. Forget it. It's just a gathering of Buddhist cultivators. It's not a big deal without me, an ancient devil. It's just a pity that I couldn't find out the deeper meaning of Great Emperor Tiandu. Ning Fan sighed softly. He kept the name card and continued to meditate with his eyes closed. It was the last night before the start of the mausoleum seizing competition. He still needed some time to recover his mental strength. Thus, he had no choice but to meditate. The night gradually turned dark. The night wind rustled outside the door. After an unknown period of time, a laugh suddenly resounded. The sound of the laughter was too abrupt. It made Ning Fan open his eyes with vigilance. An immortal emperor. An immortal emperor had actually arrived outside his door. It was not Lu Tuo, Gu Ling, or Bai Hua whom he had met before. However, he did not know which great emperor had come. This old man is Tiandu. I came uninvited and became an unwelcome guest. Little friend, are you not going to invite this old man in? His voice reverberated through the 9 heavens. It was as deafening as thunder. However, the strange thing was that only Ning Fan could hear it. It did not startle any of the people who were sound asleep nearby at all. Ning Fan's heart immediately shuddered. How could he not know that Great Emperor Tiandu would come knocking on his door when he did not go to the Ancient Buddha Association to attend the appointment with Great Emperor Tiandu? With a thought, he stopped meditating and walked out of the room to welcome them. Please enter, Your Majesty. If that's the case, then this old man will disturb you. Great Sovereign Tiandu had an old-fashioned face, but his words and actions were very polite to Ning Fan. He laughed and strode into the room. Ning Fan had already stood up and walked to the door to welcome Great Sovereign Tiandu. He ushered him into the outer room and they sat down separately. Great Sovereign Tiandu wore a smile on his face. He did not look angry at all. However, after thinking for a while, Ning Fan still asked a question. Imperial Lord, did you come here in the middle of the night to blame me for failing to attend the ancient Buddha meeting? Blame? Of course not. Although this old man has invited little friend to participate in the ancient Buddha convention, it's up to little friend whether you participate or not. This old man will definitely not force you. It's a pity that little friend is not here. You lost the chance to taste the ancient Buddha convention's Tao fruit. What a pity, what a pity. Although he said it was a pity, there was no pity in the eyes of the Heaven Capital Emperor. Instead, there was a burst of light. This was the first time he met Ning Fan. Before he met Ning Fan, he knew that even though Ning Fan's Tao comprehension was high, it was only limited to the grand perfection realm. Today, however, He was astonished. The current Ning Fan in front of him did not just see the great perfection realm. His body had already drawn the first stroke of samsara, and he actually had his own samsara chi. Initially, he only paid 30% attention to Ning Fan, but now, he was paying a lot of attention to him. Since you're not here to blame me, may I know why your majesty has come to visit so late at night? Could it be that you have something to discuss with me? Ning Fan asked. Seeing that Ning Fan had already guessed the purpose of his visit, Tian Du did not hide it anymore and said straightforwardly. That's right. The reason why I invited little friend to the ancient Buddha assembly is because I have something to ask of you. Since little friend doesn't want to go, I have no choice but to come uninvited. May I know what request does the imperial monarch have? I'm afraid I won't be able to help senior much, am I right? Hee hee. If a person who drew the first stroke of samsara still can't help me, I'm afraid there aren't many people who can help me in this dharma-ending era. Even though I don't have enough talent and I can't do it, I'm confident that I won't make a mistake. May I know when little friend drew the first stroke of samsara and what was the process like? Can you explain it to me? Great Emperor Tian Du wore a pleading look. Ning Fan's heart, however, shuddered. What does the first stroke of samsara mean? Could it be that he is referring to the fact that I have just comprehended samsara? Could it be that Great Emperor Tian Du's request is related to this? Junior would like to ask Senior about the first stroke of samsara. I don't really understand what Senior is talking about. It seems like little friend isn't willing to tell me about the process of comprehending samsara. Forget it. This probably involves little friend's secrets. I won't ask about it. Great Emperor Tian Du only knew that Ning Fan was trying to find an excuse to dodge the question. Subconsciously, he felt a little displeased. However, when he remembered that he had something to ask of Ning Fan, he relaxed his brows and acted as if he did not mind it at all. Initially, they were having a pleasant conversation. However, the atmosphere now became a little awkward. Ning Fan did not show it on his face, but he was rather speechless inwardly. It seems like Great Emperor Tian Du's magnanimity is not as great as what he showed. At first, he wanted to explain that he was not trying to hide anything from Great Emperor Tian Du, and he really did not understand what Great Emperor Tian Du meant. However, he was too lazy to explain now. Senior, why don't you tell me what is it that you want to ask of me? Hee hee. I've forgotten about the important matter. In my early years, I went to the Three Flames continent to gather herbs. Once, I accidentally entered a secret place and obtained a treasure. I hope that little friend can appreciate it. After setting up many barriers in the surroundings, Great Emperor Tian Du carefully took out an item. It was a worn-out scabbard that was kept in a jade box. The scabbard was stained with blood from countless years ago. It was an extremely ancient artifact. However, the sword intent on the scabbard had never been extinguished until now. When it came into contact with the scabbard, it still gave off a soul-stirring feeling. The higher one's cultivation base was, the more fearful they would be when facing this scabbard. Little friend, what do you think about this scabbard? Great Emperor Tian Du handed the scabbard to Ning Fan. Ning Fan's expression did not change, but he had an indescribable feeling in his heart. This scabbard looks so familiar. No, it's not the scabbard that looks familiar. It's the sword intent on the scabbard that looks familiar. It's the same sword intent as the scabbard that he used to severely injure Moksha Sovereign when he first started cultivating the Tao. It's the sword intent that was left behind by the woman who was known as the Sword Ancestor. Ning Fan suddenly had a feeling of being separated by time and space. It was as if he had returned to the time when he was young. He returned to the time when he was tiny and insignificant, when he stood in front of the giant Moksha Sovereign. Even though he was tiny and insignificant, he still managed to block the attack with a single sword strike. He looked at Moksha Sovereign with that tiny body of his. In the past, I could only see the surface of this scabbard but not its interior. The sword chi in this scabbard is enough to deliver a void fragmentation realm attack. As for its sword intent, I didn't expect it to be so terrifying. In the past, Ning Fan could not see how terrifying this sword intent was. Today, However, he could already experience it with his own body. The sword ancestor's sword intent was everlasting and inextinguishable. That sword intent had already gone through the perfection stage and returned to its original state, containing the true third step of the sword law. In the past, he could not see this. Now, however, he could see the traces of returning to its original state. With a flick of his finger, a wisp of golden-purple mist gently blew towards the scabbard. Then, it was easily destroyed by the sword law on the scabbard. Hiss! Little friend, you have not only drawn the first stroke of samsara but you can also activate a trace of the power of samsara and externalize it. Great Sovereign Tian Du's eyes widened in astonishment as he stared at Ning Fan in disbelief. Moreover, he confirmed one thing from the destruction of Ning Fan's golden-purple mist. I knew it. I knew it. This scabbard contained the third step of the perfect sword Tao. Unfortunately, he could not see through the profoundness of that sword intent. He could only guess. He could not imitate, learn or comprehend it, however, Ning Fan could do it. Ha ha ha. This external cultivator is indeed useful. Ha 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 ha. Great Sovereign Tian Du wanted to laugh maniacally in his heart but his expression remained calm. He took back the scabbard from Ning Fan's hand and kept it carefully like a precious treasure. After that, he discussed with Ning Fan. How is it? How's the sword Tao contained in this scabbard? It's incomparably powerful and unprecedented. Ning Fan praised from the bottom of his heart. He could tell that the sword ancestor's sword Tao was the third step of the perfect sword Tao. However, he could not see the specific changes in the law of the sword within it. Those changes were too complicated. Little friend, do you want to learn this unparalleled sword Tao? If you succeed in learning it, you might be able to step into the legendary sage realm with this sword Tao. Great Sovereign Tian Du said temptingly. This is too difficult. The senior who left behind this sword intent had countless changes in the law of the sword. It's just a scabbard that has experienced countless years. It's impossible for it to display all the changes in the law of the Tao. With just a scabbard, I won't be able to learn it even in my entire life. Ning Fan shook his head and said. If there are thousands of such scabbards, there are still tens of thousands of them. What if I can even find the corpse of the senior who left behind the sword intent for you? Little friend, are you interested in learning this supreme sword Tao with me? I only have one request. If you comprehend something, don't keep it to yourself. You need to imprint a copy of it and give it to me. Imprint. Ha! I don't need any imprint. Wouldn't it be easier for me to kill you and search your soul after you comprehend the sword Tao? You're just an external cultivator. It's not a problem to kill you. Great Sovereign Tian Du already had a plan in his mind. However, he put on a sincere expression on his face while discussing with Ning Fan. Ning Fan did not know the evil scheme in Great Sovereign Tian Du's heart. However, he was also wary of this person. Naturally, it was impossible for him to foolishly follow him and learn the so-called Supreme Sword Tao. However, he could not reject him too obviously. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if Great Sovereign Tian Du turns against him. I wonder where is the place where Senior discovered the 10,000 scabbards. Then, where is the corpse of the Senior who left behind this Supreme Sword Tao? This. Great Sovereign Tian Du was at a loss for words. It was not that he wanted to hide anything from Ning Fan but he was afraid that Ning Fan would be frightened and not dare to go there if he told him the location of the 10,000 scabbards. It seems like Senior doesn't really want to make this deal. Forget it. It's fine if I don't learn this Supreme Sword Tao. I'll leave it for Senior to comprehend alone. Ning Fan picked up the teacup in front of him and was actually going to send his guest away. When Tian Du saw that the deal was about to break down, he instantly became anxious. If Ning Fan does not learn this Supreme Sword Tao, he would not be able to find a second person who had comprehended the cycle of samsara and was easy to control to learn this Sword Tao. This was the third step Sword Tao. Only those who had comprehended the third step were qualified to learn it. What was the third step? It was perfection, samsara. There was a saying that the lower one's cultivation level was when they saw perfection, the more limitless their future achievements would be. Great Sovereign Tian-du was confident that he could also see perfection. However, that was after he became an emperor. Moreover, he had received guidance from the Holy Mountain's radiant Buddha before he could barely achieve this. His aptitude was far inferior to Ning Fan's. He was not even sure if the sword Dao in the scabbard was the third step sword Dao. In the end, Ning Fan solved his doubts. He helped him confirm this matter. What was even more frightening was that Ning Fan, who was just an immortal venerable realm external cultivator, had already drawn the first stroke of samsara. He could even release the power of samsara. As far as he knew, there were only two people who could achieve this. One was the strongest expert of the Holy Mountain, Radiant Buddha, while the other was the strongest expert of the Three Flames, Dead Emperor. Be it Radiant Buddha or Dead Emperor, both of them had seen perfection before the immortal Emperor realm. If Ning Fan survives until the end, he would at least be a powerful being like that. If Ning Fan had really grown to that level, the Heaven Capital Emperor would not dare to plot against Ning Fan anymore. What he was interested in was Ning Fan's immaturity. Because Ning Fan had yet to grow, it was easy to control and kill him. With Ning Fan's unparalleled aptitude, the chances of him learning the third step sword Dao was not small. The day this young man succeeds in learning the third step sword Dao would be the day when Great Sovereign Tian-du would reap the benefits. After killing Ning Fan, he would reap the insights of the sword Dao that Ning Fan had comprehended. If it wasn't for such a huge profit, why would he violate the ancestral rules and invite an external cultivator to join the ancient Buddha assembly? What he did not expect was that Ning Fan was actually bold enough to ignore his invitation and miss the ancient Buddha assembly. Because of this, countless old monsters who regarded the ancient Buddha assembly as a sacred place were enraged by Ning Fan's refusal. Humans were strange. If you invite external cultivators, they would blame you for violating the ancestral rules and find the external cultivator an eyesore. If the external cultivator doesn't come, they would blame the external cultivator for having no regard for the Buddha Dharma and blaspheming the grace of Buddha. Great Sovereign Tian-du was different from those ancient Buddha assemblies. He would not blame Ning Fan for ignoring the ancient Buddha assembly. As long as he could achieve his goal, he was willing to put down his pride and visit Ning Fan a little. At this moment, when he saw Ning Fan sending the guest off with a cup of tea, Great Sovereign Tian-du could not care less anymore and hurriedly explained. "Little friend, please don't misunderstand me. I didn't mean to hide it from you. I'm just afraid that you will be afraid of going there if I tell you about this place. Senior, please feel free to tell me. This junior has always been bold. There is no place that I dare not go." Ning Fan put down the teacup and said with a faint smile. "It's my fault for underestimating little friend's courage. To be honest, the place where I found the 10,000 scabbards and the place where Senior's remains are located is the most dangerous place in the Three Flames continent, the Sky Flame continent." When Ning Fan mentioned the Sky Flame, even Great Sovereign Tian-du felt a chill down his spine. The scariness of the Sky Flame Death Emperor had already penetrated deep into his bones, leaving a shadow in his heart. What? It's actually in the Sky Flame continent. Isn't that one of the 3 10th grade ominous regions? If we enter that place rashly, won't we be following in the footsteps of Great Sovereign Bai Hua? Ning Fan pretended to be shocked, but his mind was suddenly moved. A 10th grade ominous region was not just simply dangerous. Due to the fact that it was isolated by the saints, even immortal emperors would not be able to enter without a passage token. One of the reasons why he came to the Supreme Pill's sacred region was to help Zhang Yu obtain a physical body. Rumor has it that the herb gatherer saint had a hobby, which was to keep the corpses of the medicine slaves who had been poisoned to death properly. There was no lack of corpses of immortal emperors among those corpses. There were both male and female corpses. It was the purpose of his trip. He did not know where those corpses were kept and the whereabouts of Jiu Chu's sacrificial artifact. He did not know if he needed to enter the Three Flames continent to find these things. If there is a need. Perhaps Great Sovereign Tian-du would be a helper who came to his door and could easily help him enter the Three Flames continent. Fellow Taoist, aren't there no place that you dare not go? Why are you afraid after I mentioned the sky flame? Humph. Could it be that all the outer cultivators in the eastern heaven are such cowards? Don't be afraid. Great Sovereign Baihua returning with severe injuries in the Three Flames continent is actually just a special case. Look at me. I have also entered the Three Flames continent and found that secret place. Am I not still fine? The outside world has heard that the Three Flames continent is extremely dangerous. How many of those who spread the rumors have actually been there personally? If you follow me, I will make sure that you have a safe journey. Great Sovereign Tian Du guaranteed in a heroic manner. If I have Senior's protection, going to the Three Flames continent is really not a dangerous thing. Moreover, for the sake of the opportunity to attain the third step of the Sword Tao, what's the harm in taking some small risks? Once we succeed, both Senior and I will become figures whose names shake heaven and earth. Such benefits are enough for us to enter that ominous place. Ning Fan seemed to hesitate for a long time. Then, he gritted his teeth and gave a firm answer. Great Sovereign Tian Du was immediately overjoyed. Little friend's words are exactly what I want. Sure enough, it was the right decision for me to come and discuss this matter with you. Since you are still participating in the mausoleum seizing battle, I won't force you to go with me. After all the 3 rounds of the mausoleum seizing battle have ended, I will come and look for you again. Then, we can enter the Three Flames together. What do you think? Ning Fan pretended to be thinking about it carefully. After a long time, he answered. This is feasible. Let's do as Senior says. Ha! Little friend is indeed a straightforward person. If that's the case, this matter is decided. However, there's one thing that you must remember. The third step of the Sword Tao is extremely important. Little friend, you must not tell anyone about it. Isn't it better for you and me to enjoy the benefits alone? If we succeed, sooner or later, we will become the third and fourth quasi-saints of the Great Humble Clan after the Light Buddha and the Death Emperor. I forgot that little friend isn't a person from the Great Humble Clan. It was a slip of the tongue. A slip of the tongue. Ha ha ha. While Great Sovereign Tian Du was chatting with Ning Fan's heart was filled with curiosity. Becoming the third and fourth quasi-saints, according to Great Sovereign Tian Du's knowledge, there are only these 2 quasi-saints in the Great Humble Clan. I wonder which grade of quasi-saints are the Light Buddha and the Death Emperor at. Oh. Little friend, you seem to know a lot about the quasi-saints. To be honest, both the Light Buddha and the Death Emperor are first-level quasi-saints. They are incomparably strong. Ordinary immortal emperors can never be compared to them. Just first-level quasi-saints? If the Great Humble Clan only has these 2 quasi-saints, then what about that second-level quasi-saint with the surname Nyo? Could it be that the quasi-saint with the surname Nyo is a great secret of the Great Humble Clan that cannot be told to outsiders? Is that why Great Sovereign Tian Du mentioned this person? Or perhaps, Great Sovereign Tian Du does not even know that there is a quasi-saint with the surname Nyo in the Great Humble Clan. Senior, have you heard of a quasi-saint with the surname Nyo? Oh, a quasi-saint with the surname Nyo. Could he be a quasi-saint of your Eastern Heaven? When talking about quasi-saints, even Great Sovereign Tian Du who looked down on external cultivators became interested. The ignorance in Great Sovereign Tian Du's eyes was not an act. He really did not know about the existence of a quasi-saint with the surname Nyo. This is interesting. Could it be that such a living second-level quasi-saint has been living in the middle state for so many years and the immortal emperor of the Great Humble Clan actually does not know about it? Since Senior has never heard about it, then it's fine. It's getting late. Junior's mind has yet to recover from the exhaustion, so I won't entertain Senior any longer. Ha! It's my fault for delaying little friend's recovery. Fine. Little friend, take this bottle of pills. This is the 9 transformations golden pill personally concocted by the Radiant Buddha of the Holy Mountain. Even though it's just a gold pill, its medicinal effect is much stronger than ordinary gold pills. It has a great effect on the recovery of one's mind. I will also take care of little friend in the tomb seizing battle tomorrow. I've heard a little about the grudge between fellow Taoist Lu Tua and Little Friend. If anything happens, I will certainly take care of Little Friend. Little Friend, you don't have to be afraid of Sha Bai Lu. I won't disturb Little Friend's recovery anymore. I'll take my leave now. After Great Sovereign Tian Du gave Ning Fan a bottle of 9 transformations golden pills without hesitation, he bid farewell and left. Ning Fan fiddled with the bottle of pills in his hand while looking at the direction where Great Sovereign Tian Du left. The corners of his lips curved into a cold smile. Great Sovereign Tian Du really thinks that I'm a fool from a lowly race. Does he really think that I'll be included in his scheme? Forget it. For the time being, I will make use of this heaven capital Great Emperor. This person has some plans for me. Before that, he will definitely protect me. In this way, I can make use of the prestige of Heaven Capital Great Emperor to easily settle all the problems. However, I didn't expect to see the scabbard that was passed down by the sword ancestor in this foreign land. Ning Fan spread his palm. There seemed to be a residual warmth of the scabbard on his palm. An indescribable feeling lingered in his heart. When he was young, he did not have such a feeling when he held the scabbard. Today, however, he did. In the sword ancestor's sword intent, there is a very strong reluctance. When I was young, I couldn't understand this. It's not because my cultivation level wasn't high enough but because I didn't understand love. At that time, I still didn't know what it feels like to miss someone. Now that I've been away from home for a long time, I understand. The longing in the sword ancestor's sword intent is very, very deep. Has this senior already passed away? When she left this sword intent, who was she thinking of? If it wasn't for the scabbard in the past, perhaps my master and I would have died in the hands of Moksha Sovereign in 7 Apricot City. Even though Asiai intentionally gave me that scabbard, if I'm following the path of fate, I should also be grateful to this senior sword ancestor whom I had the chance to meet. According to Great Sovereign Tian Du, the corpse of the sword ancestor is at the same place as the 10,000 scabbard. If I go there, I should be able to pay my respects to the sword ancestor. That senior sword ancestor has a side profile that is extremely similar to Dugu's. Ning Fan could not help but recall the scene in the sword world in the past. When he saw the portrait of the sword ancestor in the past, he actually thought that Dugu was the sword ancestor and the sword ancestor was Dugu. No, it shouldn't be. Now that he had a deep understanding of the Tao of Qi, the Qi of Dugu and the sword ancestor were similar, but there were more differences. It's impossible for an immortal to be reincarnated. Even if there's such a possibility, it's impossible for them to have 2 different Qi. They can't be the same person. That illusion I had in the past was indeed just an illusion. I'm really curious about what Dugu saw in the Sword of Truth Lake that could reflect her past and present life. Ning Fan reminisced and his eyes were filled with warmth. Little devil Ning, you were a butterfly in your past life, right? What exactly did you see? Don't ask. You'll never know. A ray of misty white sunlight shone through the window. Ning Fan was speechless when he realized that it was already morning. The mausoleum seizing battle was about to begin. There was no time for him to slowly recover his mental state. Forget it. I'll just use Great Sovereign Tian Du's pill to recover. Ning Fan took out a golden pill from the pill bottle. The pill's fragrance immediately filled the entire room. Ning Fan was not tempted by the pill's fragrance. He just wordlessly shot out a few rays of golden light and scanned the pill a few times. He only consumed the pill with ease after the secret restriction on the pill was altered. Hee. Even delaying him for a night without giving him time to recover was a script that Great Sovereign Tian Du had planned beforehand. He wanted to use this pill to recover his mental state to trick me. Unfortunately, this scheme is a little clumsy, however, this pill is really good. Its medicinal power is incomparable to an ordinary 9 revolutions golden pill. It was enough to show how high the attainment of the Tao of Pill of the Radiance Buddha who concocted this pill was. Could it be that he's actually a 9 revolutions pill master? Ning Fan's eyes were filled with emotions. He really couldn't be compared to this level of pill refinement technique, and he was also too lazy to catch up. There was no other reason other than the fact that he did not have enough time to multitask. This was the last night of the mausoleum seizing battle. In the morning of the next day, the sky above Lioli City was covered with the morning glow of dawn. When it was noon, the sound of heavenly bells reverberated and hundreds of birds danced in the sky. Thus, countless residents of Lioli City began to walk out of their houses and gather at the Great Radiance Temple in the north of the city with the help of the teleportation formation at various relay stations. The Great Radiance Temple was the largest temple in Lioli City. The 10,000 zhang square in the temple was the place where the second round of the mausoleum seizing battle would be held. Chapter 1032. The Great Light Temple was not the oldest ancient temple in Lioli City, but it was definitely the one with the most incense offerings in Lioli City. This was because this temple had produced an extremely talented person, the Holy Mountain's #1 powerhouse, the Buddha of Light. This was the dojo of the Light Buddha, where the supreme golden body of the Light Buddha was enshrined. If there was any change in Lioli City, the Light Buddha could use his golden body to descend upon this place at any time. Since the seizing the mausoleum was held here, naturally no one dared to cause trouble here. At the center of the square stood a giant golden statue of the radiant Buddha, solemn and dignified, its eyes looking downwards. Although it was clearly just a statue, it seemed to always be watching over Lioli City. At noon, the scorching sun hung high in the sky. The stone floor of the square was scorching hot, but there were still countless believers who were not afraid of the heat. They devoutly kowtowed to the golden body of Light Buddha, chanting sutras and praying. Gradually, there were martial monks in the temple who began to disperse the believers, making space for the mausoleum seizing battle. When the square was cleared, thousands of rays of light shone down from the sky. There was a mirage hidden in the rays of light. One could vaguely see that it was a building. The mirage solidified as time passed. When the rays of light dissipated, the originally empty square was actually filled with many white marble platforms. On the platforms, fruits and wine were displayed. Immortals and Buddhas were already seated on the platforms. Each of them had a powerful aura. Very few of them were lower than the realm of true immortals. The ones sitting at the head of the group of immortals were naturally the 5 emperors of the Central Plains. Tian Du Monarch took the lead, followed by Buddha Sob Monarch, 100 Flower Monarch, Lu Tua Monarch, and Bone Spirit Monarch. As soon as the 5 emperors appeared, there were countless cheers in the plaza. Under the 5 emperors, tens of thousands of immortals come forth. The second round of the mausoleum seizing battle is about to begin. Hiss. The Central Prefecture's 5 emperors were all here. Even the heavily injured 100 Flowers Great Emperor has come. Rumor has it that the 100 Flower Emperor is heavily injured and on the verge of death. As expected, rumors cannot be trusted. Look at the 100 Flower Emperor's Yang Qi, although it is weak, it is restrained. Although the Yin Qi is floating, it is not chaotic. The followers of the 5 emperors are almost all here. There seem to be a few unfamiliar faces beside the 100 Flower Emperor. A few people noticed the few unfamiliar faces sitting beside the 100 Flower Emperor, and were extremely curious. If Ning Fan was here, he would realize that Ouyang Yuan and Zhang Yu were sitting beside the 100 Flower Emperor. Aren't these 2 women Ning Fan's companions? The veiled female cultivator who caught my attention is also here. According to the rumors in the outside world, Ning Fan had obtained the courtesy of the 100 Flowers sect by treating their injuries. Now, it seems like it wasn't just because he treated their injuries. Emperor Lu Tua glanced at the 100 Flower Empress imperceptibly with a dark expression. That darkness was mostly directed at Zhang Yu, who was wearing a veil. If it was said that he only felt a slight sense of familiarity and detest when he first met Zhang Yu when he headed to the Pagoda Wood tribe, then today, he was almost 60 to 70% sure that this veiled woman was the outside cultivator that he hated the most. Immortal concubine Zhang Yu. In the past, he was beaten half to death by Zhang Yu, which damaged his foundation. Although he did not even see Zhang Yu's appearance during the entire process, he clearly remembered that immortal concubine Zhang Yu had a friendly relationship with the 100 Flower Emperor. No, the 100 Flower Emperor at that time had yet to take over the 100 Flowers Peak. Even though she had the cultivation base of an immortal emperor, she did not use the name 100 Flower. Instead, she used the name Ji Shiling. Ji Shiling, Zhang Yu. On that day, immortal concubine Zhang Yu once again visited the Supreme Pill's sacred region to collect herbs. As someone who had just become an immortal emperor not long ago, he was proud and arrogant. Naturally, he could not bear to see an outside cultivator running amok in the Great Humble clan. Thus, he went to stop her. Of course, he was not a match for immortal concubine Zhang Yu. He knew this very well. Thus, he invited Ji Shiling to stop her with him. However, Ji Shiling rejected him with the reason that he was acquainted with Zhang Yu. In the end, he went to stop immortal concubine Zhang Yu alone. As proud and arrogant as he was naturally arrogant and spoke without thinking. Fortunately, he believed that this was the territory of the Great Humble clan. Even if he was a little overbearing, immortal concubine Zhang Yu would not dare to do anything to him. Unexpectedly, immortal concubine Zhang Yu had a bad temper. It was fine if she was not angry. Once she was angry, she attacked him with extreme force and beat him half to death. Even his foundation was damaged. Until now, he was still unable to break through the shackles of the sixth tribulation and break through to the seventh tribulation. Recalling the past, Great Emperor Lu Tuo also felt regret, but he felt even more resentment. He hated Zhang Yu for injuring him. He hated that Ji Shiling did not help him from the side. If Ji Shiling was there, with her formation Dao cultivation, even if he was not a match for Zhang Yu, he would not have been injured so badly. After the ancient heavenly court was destroyed, I once killed some outside cultivators who entered the Supreme Pill's sacred region. I searched their memories and tried to inquire about immortal concubine Zhang Yu. The answer I obtained was that immortal concubine Zhang Yu got involved in the muddy waters of the ancient heavenly court and died in battle. With the passage of time, the name of immortal concubine Zhang Yu has already been buried in the dust. Very few outside cultivators have heard of this name. However, unexpectedly, she did not die and is actually sitting here together with Ji Shiling. However, she seems to be the same as Ji Shiling. Both of them are already half dead. Ominous light flashed in Great Emperor Lu Tuo's eyes. He almost had an impulse to immediately expose Zhang Yu's identity and kill her on the spot. However, when his eyes glanced at the radiant Buddha golden body in the center of the plaza, he suddenly became extremely fearful. He clenched his teeth and temporarily suppressed the impulse to kill Zhang Yu. Zhang Yu, who noticed the change in Great Emperor Lu Tuo's expression, immediately felt a little uneasy. He sent a voice transmission to 100 Flower Emperor. I came here and sat so close to that Lu Tuo brat. Is it really okay? He seems to have really recognized me. As expected, I should not have listened to you and come here to watch this mausoleum seizing battle. Why is big sister so timid? This is not like you in the past at all. Moreover, do you really think that no one knows that you've entered my clan? Lu Tuo is considered to have realized it later. However, as far as I know, Gu Ling is the first to know about this. However, he did not dare to expose your identity. After all, there is the shadow of a great Buddha behind you. No wonder Gu Ling hurriedly followed Lu Tuo to a small place like the southern border that day. I'm afraid he was eager to express his goodwill to you. Unfortunately, you seem to have no idea about this. Or perhaps, Gu Ling is just afraid. If Lu Tuo really had the impulse to attack you that day, I wonder if a great Buddha would be angry because of you. If he were to vent his anger on you recklessly. Perhaps this is what Gu Ling is really worried about. 100 Flower Emperor laughed delicately. Similarly, her eyes glanced at the giant golden body statue in the center of the plaza with profound meaning. Zhang Yu was no longer perturbed. Instead, his forehead was full of black lines. I've only met your radiant Buddha once. Moreover, we fought as soon as we met. Do you think that someone would be afraid of me and express his goodwill to me because of the name of Radiant Buddha? Sister definitely has no personal feelings for Radiant Buddha. However, it's not necessarily the case for Radiant Buddha. Sister, You might not know that Radiant Buddha, who rarely leaves the sacred mountain after he achieved his Tao, left the sacred mountain once after the ancient heavenly court was destroyed. He even violated the divine ancestors' ban by walking out of the supreme Dan realm and went to the outside world. I don't know who he was looking for. When he came back, his expression was sorrowful and crazy. He went crazy in the uninhabited central state and killed indiscriminately. I don't know how many mountains and rivers were destroyed by his supernatural power. When he calmed down, he sealed himself in the holy mausoleum and spent all day studying the discovered sacred ancient stone statues. He never left the place again. However, occasionally, he would summon some people to meet him and inquire about some news. I was also summoned by Radiant Buddha to ask about Sister's news. However, at that time, I only knew that Sister was already dead. Naturally, I couldn't provide any news to Radiant Buddha. Radiant Buddha's face looked as if he was dead. There was even a rumor that Radiant Buddha did not hesitate to violate the ban and resolutely left the world when the outside world was in chaos. He went to the ruins of the ancient heavenly court to look for Sister. As for the reason why he went crazy, it was probably because he found out about Sister's death. Zhang Yu's forehead was filled with more black lines. Why haven't I heard about this? Because you're dead. Zhang Yu was speechless for a long time. Then, he shook his head and said, I don't think your Radiant Buddha and I have that kind of relationship. You're just guessing about a lot of things. I'm afraid there's another reason why Radiant Buddha went crazy. Really? 100 Flower Emperor looked at Zhang Yu in disbelief. Really? Hee, if Sister doesn't want to admit it, then forget it. Just take it that you have nothing to do with Radiant Buddha. 100 Flower Emperor looked amiable on the surface, but she was sneering in her heart. She didn't believe that Zhang Yu and Radiant Buddha didn't have any relationship. Radiant Buddha's infatuation didn't seem to be fake at all. She, who had seen countless men, was convinced that Radiant Buddha was deeply in love with immortal concubine Zhang Yu. Immortal concubine Zhang Yu, who was known to be unaffected by men, and Radiant Buddha, who was named after Buddha, the relationship between the two was definitely not simple. They had most likely been together countless times. Zhang Yu's concealment was really too obvious. Zhang Yu knew that 100 Flower Emperor didn't believe it, but she couldn't be bothered to explain to 100 Flower Emperor. She frowned slightly. Back then, she had truly treated 100 Flower Emperor as a friend. But now, she didn't. With the passage of time, 100 Flower Emperor had already changed beyond recognition. It was as if she had become another person. The relationship between the two of them was probably only cooperation of benefits. As for the matter of Radiant Buddha that 100 Flower Emperor mentioned, Zhang Yu expressed that she really didn't know anything. There's no need for 100 Flower Emperor to lie. Could it be that Radiant Buddha really has deep feelings for me? But, what's the reason? I've only met him once, and we immediately started fighting. We didn't even speak more than 3 sentences. How could he fall in love with me? Zhang Yu tried her best to recall the past. Her impression of Radiant Buddha was truly a little blurry. That year, she was still a 9 Tribulation Peak Immortal Emperor, and Radiant Buddha didn't seem to have broken through to the Quasi-Saint realm. It seemed like he had just broken through to the 9 Tribulation realm. As usual, she ran to the extreme Dan sacred region to act tyrannically. Then, an ugly bearded monk ran out and said to her, Amitabha. You are the first woman this little monk has seen after opening my eyes. This is fate. This little monk won't kill you. You can leave. In the future, remember not to come and cause trouble. Look, how arrogant those words were. A mere immortal emperor who had just broken through to the 9 Tribulation realm actually dared to speak to her, who was at the peak 9 Tribulation realm. Of course, she couldn't tolerate it. Thus, without saying a word, she beat that bearded monk into a sandbag and continued to act tyrannically. The bearded monk didn't even look cool for 3 seconds before he failed to act cool. After that, Zhang Yu found out that the bearded monk that she had beaten up was called Radiant Buddha. That seemed to be the only time she met Radiant Buddha, Zhang Yu thought over and over again. She tried her best to think, but she still couldn't understand why Radiant Buddha would like her. She still didn't believe it. If she had to think maliciously, it was probably because Radiant Buddha liked to be beaten up, so he liked her. Or perhaps it was because she was the first woman that Radiant Buddha had seen. The first woman that he had seen. TSK, being a monk is really tough. He chanted sutras and chanted Buddhist scriptures all day and he didn't even see a woman before. Just when he saw a woman who could embarrass the moon and the flowers, he fell in love with her. It seems to make sense. Zhang Yu touched her small and tender face under the veil proudly. Inwardly, she thought that this face of hers still has some charm. Even though she had never bewitched the expressionless little thief, she accidentally bewitched the radiant Buddha of the great humble clan. TSK. That little thief is indeed not as tasteful as radiant Buddha. Unfortunately, radiant Buddha's appearance is a little ugly. From this point of view, it seems like he can't be compared to that little thief. On the other side, the 100 Flowers Sovereign was talking to Zhang Yu through telepathy. On the other side, Great Sovereign Tian Du was resting with his eyes closed while Great Sovereign Buddha Sob was chatting happily with Great Sovereign Bone Spirit. I didn't expect that fellow Taoist Bai Hua would also come to watch the competition. It seems like her injuries are no longer a problem. Great Sovereign Buddha Sob said with his signature strange smile. How can it be easy for an immortal emperor like us to fall? There are rumors everywhere in the outside world saying that fellow Taoist Bai Hua is on the verge of death. However, I have never believed them. Now that I've seen her today, it's indeed true. Great Sovereign Bone Spirit chuckled and glanced at Bai Hua Emperor. Eventually, his eyes fixed on Zhang Yu's body. Inwardly, he was about 60 to 70% sure about it. Sure enough, this veiled woman seems to have a close relationship with Bai Hua Emperor. It seems like she is the rumored immortal concubine Zhang Yu. It was not in vain for him to go to the southern border and find an excuse to stop Great Sovereign Lu Tua from acting recklessly. In this way, he could be considered to have formed a good relationship with this woman. Unfortunately, this woman seems to have a close relationship with that external cultivator named Ning Fan. It seems like they are even Tao companions. TSK, I wonder what Radiant Buddha's attitude will be when he finds out about this. Oh. Fellow Taoist Bone Spirit seems to be very interested in that veiled woman. However, let me give you a piece of advice. You can't touch that woman. Great Sovereign Buddha Sob reminded him out of kindness. Ha! Thank you for your reminder. I understand. Hee. Let's not talk about this woman anymore. What do you think about the competition in the Middle State? This time, there are 3 teams with immortal venerables participating in the competition. An immortal venerable with a skeletal age of 5 million is an outstanding talent that only appears once in millions of years. I wonder who fellow Taoist Bone Spirit thinks will win the competition this time. Great Sovereign Buddha Sob asked. Great Sovereign Buddha Bone Spirit pondered for a while and answered. The Witch of the Sea Witch tribe, Wu Yan, has the cultivation base of the first tribulation of all eternity. She has already broken through to the immortal venerable realm 400,000 years ago. Her chances of winning the first place aren't high, but she's still 90% certain that she'll be in the top 3. Furthermore, I've received news that this woman has a deal with fellow Taoist 100 Flowers. She's here for the South Sea spring water, so out of caution, she won't take the risk for the first place. As for the Red Peak tribe's venerable Hong Zong, this person has just broken through to the immortal venerable realm not long ago. Moreover, he's not adept in fights, so I'm afraid that he won't be the first place. However, his comprehension of Buddhism is extremely pure, so he's indeed a good seedling. Fellow Taoist, you are wrong. Even though Shi Dang is not bad, he was once defeated by fellow Taoist Lu Tuo's precious disciple. During the first tribulation of the ancient times, he almost died tragically in the hands of Sha Bai Lu. However, Shi Dang is no longer the Shi Dang of the past. Now that he has the cultivation base of the second tribulation, I'm afraid he won't be defeated by Sha Bai Lu again. Sha Bai Lu is also stubborn. He has been stuck at the bottleneck of the immortal venerable realm for so many years and he still hasn't triggered the cultivation tribulation to break through. I wonder if he is unwilling, afraid, or unable to. Gu Ling said with a sarcastic smile. He had never been on good terms with Lu Tuo. Naturally, he would not hesitate to make fun of Lu Tuo at any opportunity. Faced with Gu Ling's mockery, Emperor Lu Tuo only let out a cold snort. He did not explain, but he was sneering in his heart. His disciple, Sha Bai Lu, could have broken through to the immortal venerable realm long ago. He had even touched the bottleneck of the first and second tribulation. That disciple was proud and arrogant. He did not want to break through casually. Instead, he wanted to make thorough preparations so that he could obtain the greatest benefits from the breakthrough. After the breakthrough, he would not just be a new immortal venerable. He would probably go through several cultivation tribulations in one go and become an immortal venerable who had passed the second tribulation. His disciple was the most popular candidate for the champion of the mausoleum seizing battle. Shi Dang of the Stone Men tribe would only become his disciple's food. It was not just Shi Dang. With his disciple's ferocious nature, very few of the participants in this competition would be able to survive until the end. As for Ning Fan, he would certainly die. Dong! A clear and distant bell suddenly rang from the direction of the bell tower of the Great Brightness Temple. It was the signal for the second round of the mausoleum seizing battle to officially begin. At the same time when the bell rang, Ning Fan arrived outside the public square. He was really not early nor late at all. Behind Ning Fan was Old Wu, his little follower. Obviously, he was here to cheer for him. As soon as he arrived at this place, Ning Fan noticed the 5 emperors of the Middle Province who were sitting high up in the sky. He also noticed Ouyang Nguyen and Zhang Yu who were sitting below the 100-flower sovereign. He was speechless. Didn't they say that they would not come? Why are they here again? The 2 ladies also noticed Ning Fan. Ouyang Nguyen's beautiful eyes lit up and she smiled at Ning Fan. As for Zhang Yu, she glanced at Ning Fan with a hint of sympathy. Sympathy. Yes, it's sympathy. She sympathized with Ning Fan for having poor taste. He actually failed to notice that she had a beautiful face and a beautiful soul. Only the bright Buddha has good taste. This little thief is really lacking. Ning Fan, who was inexplicably pitted, looked at Zhang Yu speechlessly and then shifted his gaze. He did not intend to delve into what strange things Zhang Yu was thinking about. This woman had always been brainless. There was no need to pay attention to her. Ning Fan swept his gaze and found Xian Yu Chun among the crowd outside the public square. He was still wearing the cow-horned mask and stood alone at the corner of the public square with an unapproachable expression. When Ning Fan's gaze swept over, Xian Yu Chun and Ning Fan looked at each other. He felt that Ning Fan's eyes were so sacred and scorching that he could not look at them directly. He could not bear it anymore. He took off his mask and laughed loudly. He held up an incomparably large banner with the words, "Punching the fierce tiger of the southern mountain, kicking the flood dragon of the northern sea, resisting 10 women at night without falling, the color of the long spear is still red in battle." There was also a clumsy but incomparably large portrait of Ning Fan. In the portrait, Ning Fan was only wearing underwear, revealing his chest muscles. He was facing the sea, standing on a reef with his sword facing the sky. His long hair was messy in the wind. Obviously, it was drawn by Xian Yu Chun himself. Moreover, it was not drawn by the intelligent Xian Yu Chun, but by the stupid Xian Yu Chun. "Master, I am here to cheer for you." Ha ha ha. Go Master. Go Southern Border. Ta Mu, go. Master is invincible under the heavens. You must get first place. Ladies who are passing by, if you are not married yet, why don't you consider my master and become my master's concubine? Ha ha ha. Immediately, it made the surrounding spectators speechless. Everyone thought that Xian Yu Chun was a fool. This banner portrait was so shameful and vulgar. Ning Fan also realized that the smart Xian Yu Chun that he knew had already disappeared. He had already turned back into the simple-minded Xian Yu Chun without him noticing since some time ago. Xian Yu Chun came to cheer for him out of good intentions. But what's with that shameful portrait? Can I tear that portrait? Old Wu widened his eyes and looked at the portrait in disbelief. A talent, a talent. This young man who drew this banner was definitely a talent. There was no one else who could make the evil star flowers so shameful. Master, it took me an entire night to finish this, and I even revised it several times. Do you like it? Ha 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 ha. Xian Yu Chun shouted at Ning Fan from afar with an expression that said, "Quickly praise me." Whoosh! Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew the banner down. Ning Fan hid his hands in his sleeves and refused to admit that it was him who did it. Of course, he still showed mercy and did not directly destroy this banner. After all, it was his painstaking effort. Xian Yu Chun hurriedly held the banner up nervously. That was his master's portrait. It could not fall to the ground. It was inauspicious. Ning Fan blew again and the banner fell to the ground. Xian Yu Chun held it up again and again and again. Forget it. Ning Fan was too lazy to care about Xian Yu Chun, who was also brainless. His eyes scanned the other people, but he could not find Duolan. He could not help but recall the words of the two maids before he left. They said that Duolan was busy with something and could not come for the time being. It's fine even if she doesn't come. It's also a good thing to solve the problem of Chu Lai's lineage. At this moment, the participating teams sent by each grassland had gathered outside the public square, waiting for the grand competition to begin. Ning Fan's eyes scanned through each of the participating teams. Most of the teams had 20 people. There were also teams with less than 16 to 17 people. There were very few teams with less than 10 people, and there were only 2 people who participated alone. One of them was Ning Fan, who was too lazy to rely on the help of the weak members of the Towerwood tribe. The other one was Sha Bai Lu. According to the rules, the Middle Province's team would always have only one person. When Ning Fan's eyes swept across him, Sha Bai Lu's eyes immediately surged with battle intent. Other than Ning Fan, there was no one else who could make him excited in this grand competition. He wanted to eat Ning Fan's flesh and blood. He wanted to use Ning Fan's life to prove his existence. Just as he was about to say some harsh words to Ning Fan like before, Ning Fan's eyes only swept across his body for a moment and then moved away. It made Sha Bai Lu feel like he was ignored and became angry from embarrassment. Good. Very good. How dare you ignore me? Sha Bai Lu. You're really tired of living. His killing intent became even stronger. Some of the spectators nearby noticed Sha Bai Lu's killing intent and immediately turned to look at Ning Fan. One of the hot topics of this grand competition was the battle between Sha Bai Lu and the external cultivator Ning Fan. Many of them could not wait to know who would walk out of the grand competition alive between Sha Bai Lu and Ning Fan. Ning Fan was too lazy to care about those people's attention. He noticed that Sha Bai Lu and 3 immortal venerables from the Sea Shaman tribe, Stone Men tribe and Red Peak tribe were participating in the grand competition. Wu Yan of the Sea Shaman tribe, Shi Dang of the Stone Men tribe and Hong Zong of the Red Peak tribe. According to the information that Old Wu gathered, these 3 people were also people that he needed to pay attention to. However, among all the participants, the one that caught Ning Fan's attention the most was far from Wu Yan, Shi Dang, Hong Zong, and Sha Bai Lu. It was a participant from the Illusory Sea tribe. The Illusory Sea tribe was not a strong tribe among the despicable races. There were only 14 of them who came to participate in the grand competition. Among them, there were 13 men and 1 woman. The strongest among them was a mid-thought fragmentation realm man with a scar. Ning Fan was very concerned about the only woman. She was a young lady who carried a paper kite on her back. She wore green robes and even the kite on her back was green in color. Based on the conversation between the members of the Illusory Sea tribe, she seemed to be called Qing Ling. She was just an ordinary member of the Illusory Sea tribe. Judging from her cultivation base, she was just at the half-step Void Rend realm. She was definitely not an expert. However, Ning Fan sensed a hint of danger from her for some unknown reason. He carefully savored her qi. That kind of ethereal feeling seemed to be concealed by an illusion technique. When he tore apart that layer of concealment, he was shocked. How is this a young lady who is at the half-step void rend realm? She is obviously that half-step quasi-saint realm expert, Tu Huang. Oh. You've noticed me so quickly. Among all the people here, it seems like this young man is the only one who can do this. Qing Ling seemed to have sensed something and gave Ning Fan a meaningful smile. Qing Ling. You are my Dao companion. How can you smile at other men? In the illusory sea tribe, a rough-looking man with a scar on his face noticed Qing Ling's smile. His expression immediately turned cold. Qing Ling immediately stopped smiling. She lowered her head and did not dare to smile at Ning Fan anymore. Inwardly, she was rather speechless. How did her subordinates design such a terrible identity for her? She actually became someone's Dao companion. When the man with the scars saw that Qing Ling was obedient, he did not dare to lose his temper. He just glared at Ning Fan ferociously. He had already listed Ning Fan as his number one enemy that he must beat up. Dong, another bell rang. As soon as the bell rang, everyone became silent. Then, a giant flaming door appeared at the center of the public square. A giant whose entire body was covered in rotting flesh walked out of the door while dragging heavy chains behind him. The sounds of the chains colliding with each other could be heard. Chapter 1033. The one who walked out of the fire door was a skinny giant old man. His body was surrounded by dense death qi. It was obvious that he was not a living person but a corpse devil. Although this old man was called a giant, he was actually only 14 to 15 zhang tall. He was not a giant that could easily reach thousands of zhang tall. His skin was exposed, stiff and dark. It was unknown how long he had been dead. Only his crotch was wrapped with a tattered beast skin. Although that beast skin was old, it still retained a trace of ferocious beast qi. Obviously, it was peeled off from an extremely powerful ferocious beast. His feet were shackled, making it extremely inconvenient for him to walk. Moreover, he was wearing a golden hoop on his head. His wrists, on the other hand, were free. He was carrying a huge sword with sawtooth on his shoulder. The surface of the huge sword was covered with rust and blood stains. Even after such a long time, it still gave off a soul-stirring killing qi. Obviously, when this sword was in good condition, it was once an immemorial devil weapon with a high grade. His movements were slow and stiff. Moreover, he was shackled by the shackles. Every step he took seemed to take a long time. However, every step he took could actually make the ground of Lioli City shake as if there was an earthquake. Moreover, he seemed to be able to do it with just his physical strength. This was a little terrifying. One should know that Lioli City was filled with experts. Every place was reinforced by formations. The formations in important places like the Great Brightness Temple were even more powerful. Even if an immortal venerable attacked with his full strength, he might not be able to make the ground shake. However, this giant corpse devil did it with ease. Even if his physical strength had not reached the immortal emperor realm, it was probably at the level of a high-grade immortal king. The second round of the mausoleum seizing competition is divided into two parts. One is the trial of strength and the other is the trial of illusion. This corpse devil old man should be the one who is here to preside over the trial of strength. Ning Fan thought to himself. When his spirit sense touched the corpse of the old man, he was slightly surprised. The skin and flesh of the old man seemed to have been refined by some kind of secret technique. As soon as his spirit sense touched it, it was bounced back and could not go deeper. Even though he could not go deeper, Ning Fan could still sense a trace of ancient devil qi that was deeply hidden in the old man's body. No wonder this old man's physical strength was so terrifying that he could easily shake the entire Lioli City. It turned out that he was an ancient devil when he was alive. As soon as the old man walked out of the fire door, the residents of Lioli City outside the square immediately hissed. Their expressions were filled with disdain, fear, and indifference. Ning Fan found it hard to understand. In the past, the one who presided over the first round of the mausoleum contest on behalf of the southern grassland was also a corpse demon. However, when that corpse demon appeared, tens of thousands of people kowtowed to him. It was obvious that his status was very noble. And this corpse demon old man seemed to have an extremely lowly status. No one knelt down to worship him. There were even some residents of Lioli City who were not weak who threw rotten eggs and cabbages at the corpse demon old man from thousands of meters away. A cultivator with cultivation base was actually doing something like throwing vegetables and eggs like mortals. How boring and ridiculous. However, Ning Fan did not know why he could not bring himself to laugh. That corpse demon old man's face was stiff and expressionless as he walked out of the fire door with shackles on his legs. His intelligence was low, and his eyes were empty. He didn't understand why so many people threw rotten cabbages and rotten eggs at him, but he didn't care about it at all. He carried the rusty giant sword on his shoulder without bending his spine. Egg-white liquid was flowing down his face, but he proudly raised his skinny neck. Under the disdainful and fearful gazes of the residents of Lioli City, he held his head high like a general who was returning victorious. That unyielding aura must be the last posture that this old man had before his death. Even though he had died and turned into a corpse demon with low intelligence, he still did not lower his head. It was as if something from the corpse demon old man had infected Ning Fan, causing his expression to become solemn unknowingly. He slowly closed his eyes. The hand that was hidden in his sleeve secretly shot out a gust of magic power, blowing away the rotten eggs and cabbages that were thrown at the old man from a great distance away. Damn it! Who is the one who blew away my rotten eggs with a gust of wind? Humph! Could it be that someone is pitying this Shinrank corpse demon? What a joke! Shinrank corpse demons are all sinners. Curses could be heard everywhere. Naturally, no one knew that it was Ning Fan who did it. Rumble, the corpse demon old man slowly walked to the bottom of the high platform. With a loud bang, he stabbed the rusty giant sword into the ground. Then, he clasped his fists and saluted the 5 emperors of the Middle State in a stiff manner. His back was still straight. Shin 23, greets. Your Majesties, the voice of the old man who was called Shin 23 reverberated in the area like thunder. Some of the weaker cultivators could not withstand the sound at all and felt dizzy. Some of the residents of Lioli City even began to discuss among themselves after hearing the old man's words. Ning Fan spread out his spirit sense to listen to their conversation. Only then did he understand why this corpse demon old man was despised by the people. It was because he was different from the corpse demon that hosted the minor competition of the southern border. He was a Shinrank corpse demon. Since ancient times, the Great Humble clan had the tradition of controlling corpse demons. Basically, every clan had a corpse demon that was guarding the clan. In the Great Humble clan, there was a type of corpse demon that had an extremely high status. They only listened to the orders of the sacred mountain and they were called sacred envoys. Sacred envoys were usually divided into 2 grades, first grade and second grade. The second grade sacred envoys were mostly corpse demons below the 10,000 ancient realm. For example, the corpse devil sacred envoy who hosted the small competition in the southern grassland was a second grade corpse devil. The second grade corpse devil sacred envoy had an extremely high status. Most of the experts below the 10,000 ancient realm would need to kneel and salute when they see the second-grade corpse devil sacred envoy. The first-grade corpse devil sacred envoy had an even higher status. Most of them were corpse devils above the 10,000 ancient realm. Even some immortal emperors would need to show some respect to the first-grade corpse devil sacred envoy by cupping their fists and saluting him. The Great Humble clan's research on corpse demons was very profound. The first-grade and second-grade corpse devils of the Sacred Mountain were generally more intelligent than ordinary corpse devils. They had the basic thinking ability and fluent language skills. However, in fact, there was another type of corpse devil that was above the first-grade and second-grade corpse devils. They were classified as the Shin-grade corpse devils. The Shin-grade corpse devils were literally the first-grade corpse devils. They wanted to break free from their shackles and obtain freedom. The Shin-grade corpse devils were basically from the first-grade corpse devils. They belonged to the unusual type of first-grade corpse devils. They were unruly and disobedient. They would rather be beheaded than kneel to anyone. This type of corpse devil was unruly and unruly. Therefore, most of their originally high intelligence had been abolished. Each of them had an extremely low level of intelligence. It was difficult for them to even think. The experts of the sacred mountain were still not at ease with this type of corpse devil's sacred envoy. They were still worried that they would rebel based on their instinctive unyielding will. Therefore, they put special shackles on these corpse devils to seal their strength. The demon-subduing golden hoop that was put on this type of corpse devil's sacred envoy was also top-notch. The Shin-grade corpse devils were generally regarded as traitors among the sacred mountain's corpse devils by the Great Humble clan. Naturally, they could not have a high status. They were extremely humble existences. On the high platform, all the immortals and Buddhas looked at Shin 23 with disdain and indifference. Today was the second round of the mausoleum seizing. Everything was decided by the 5 emperors. Among the 5 emperors, Heaven Du was the leader. Heaven Du defaced Shin 23. He was too lazy to open his eyes. He said indifferently, "You can start the trial of force." Yes. In the face of the group of Buddhas, Shin 23 did not know why, but there was a sudden violent thought in his heart. He wanted to destroy some of the shackles in front of him. However, just as this violent thought rose, the dim golden hoop on his head flashed with light at the right time. He displayed his divine ability and suppressed all the violent thoughts in his body. Crack, crack, crack. It was the sound of the golden hoop constantly shrinking and squeezing his skull. Shin 23's skull was so hard that the golden hoop could not break it no matter how hard it tried. He had been dead for many years. He could not feel any pain from the squeezing. He only touched his head in puzzlement after the violent thoughts were suppressed. What happened? He didn't understand. Although he didn't understand, there were 2 lines of unwilling blood tears flowing out from the eyes that had been dead for many years. But halfway through, the tears dried up because there was not much blood left in his body. Seeing Shin 23's sudden madness, the audience was naturally shocked. Fortunately, when they saw that Shin 23 was still tamed by the golden hoop, they were all relieved. Some of the residents of Lioli City scolded and teased him in a bad mood. As expected of the Shin rank corpse devil. It's very dangerous. But so what? It still has to surrender to the Buddhist Dharma. Ning Fan frowned, but he didn't say anything. The first round of seizing the mausoleum was a small competition between the grasslands. It was divided into 2 parts, the written test and the martial test. The second round of seizing the mausoleum was the middle state grand competition. It was divided into the trial of force and the trial of illusion. The trial of force was mainly to test the physical strength of the participants. If one didn't have a certain level of body refinement, he would not be able to get a good result in the trial of force. In this round, there was no need for the participating teams to fight against each other. Instead, each team would take turns to take the test of the corpse devil. The content of the test was very simple. Each team was required to cooperate with each other to take on the giant sword of the corpse devil. The total score of the team would be increased by 100 points every time they took on the sword. There was only one requirement. In this round, they couldn't use the ability to control treasures from a distance. They couldn't use any magic techniques. They couldn't even use medicine soul-type secret techniques to enhance themselves. Instead, they had to use their physical strength to take on the attacks of the corpse devil. Obviously, body refinement cultivators had the upper hand in this round. The teams with more body refinement cultivators would have an advantage. Obviously, it was much easier for them to take on the attacks of the corpse devil when they worked together. This Shin 23's strength was extremely terrifying when he was alive. However, after he died, he was restricted by the golden hoop and shackles. His strength was sealed and he couldn't exert much of his strength. I wonder how many sword attacks of his can I take with my ancient devil cultivation base. Ning Fan thought to himself. After greeting the 5 emperors, Shin 23 began to explain the rules of the second round of seizing the mausoleum to the participants. His speech was not fluent. His sentences were strange and hard to understand. Sometimes, He would even say a lot of incomprehensible words. Fortunately, all the participants had some understanding of the rules. They didn't need to listen to the explanation of the corpse devil. There were not many people who had the patience to listen to him. All of them began to close their eyes and rest, waiting for the start of the trial of force. After explaining the rules, Shin 23 opened his mouth and spat out a golden ball of light. He threw it towards the sky. From the ball of light, 108 rays of golden light scattered and flew towards the 108 teams. Among them, there was also a ray of golden light that flew towards Ning Fan. Ning Fan stretched out his hand to catch it. It was a square golden token with the words Southern Border Tamu written on it. This was the scoreboard of the second round of seizing the mausoleum. It recorded the results of the teams. Naturally, they couldn't use the identity token of the first round. Since Ning Fan was in a team alone, the scoreboard naturally fell into his hands. As for those teams with many people, the scoreboard would be held by the person with the highest cultivation base. Suddenly, the scoreboard of one of the teams shone brightly. It was the team of the Tiger Subdue tribe from the Golden Cloud Grassland. As soon as the light shone, the members of the Tiger Subdue tribe immediately understood what it meant. They walked out from their teams and walked towards the corpse devil. The scoreboard would light up randomly. Whichever team that lit up would be the one to fight. The Tiger Subdue tribe wasn't a strong tribe among the 3,000 tribes of the Dabei tribe. However, it was considered to be above average. There were 20 experts in the team. Each of their physical bodies was strong and their chi was not any weaker than Shikong's chi. In addition, there were 3 great fragmented thought realm cultivators. All of them were at the early realm of cultivation and had strong muscles. Obviously, the Tiger Subdue tribe was well prepared for this trial of strength. The people that they sent to participate in the second round were all body cultivators. The leader of the Tiger Subdue tribe was a tall middle-aged man. He walked forward arrogantly and said to Shin 23. Please enlighten me. Give me a gift. If you don't, I will kill you. Shin 23 suddenly pulled out the huge sword that was inserted into the ground. He carried it on his shoulder and said in a stiff tone. Hee. It's a gift. Of course, I will give it to you. The middle-aged man coughed a few times. Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of phlegm on Shin 23's body. After the middle-aged man, the other experts of the Tiger Subdue tribe also came forward and spat at Shin 23 with disdainful eyes. They were not short. However, when placed together with Shin 23 who was like a giant, they were too short. They could only spit on Shin 23's legs. Shin 23's body was already covered with rotten eggs. He was already in a sorry state. Now that he was spat on, he looked even worse. However, he nodded his head in satisfaction. This gift is very good. I like it. I won't kill you. Now, the trial begins, come on. The people of the Tiger Subdue tribe laughed. Outside the public square, among the residents of Luli City, many of them could not help but laugh. Too stupid. The Shin rank corpse devils were really stupid. It was rumored that the memories of the Shin rank corpse devils were destroyed, changed, and despised by others. However, now that they saw it with their own eyes, they knew that it was not a lie. They were really too stupid. What's so funny? Ning Fan suddenly felt a sense of desolation in his heart. He did not know what was the name of Shin 23 when he was alive and what his background was. However, he could imagine that he was a dignified and unyielding ancient devil warrior. When he was alive, he would rather die than to lower his head. Until now, he still maintained this unyielding posture. After he died, he became a corpse devil. It would be fine if he was a real corpse devil. However, he had to suffer humiliation in front of countless people. If Shin 23 knew that such a day would come, he would rather explode his physical body than leave a complete corpse. No one could hear Ning Fan's inner voice. Not all of them felt that it was funny. Some of them frowned. However, there were too few of them. The trial of strength began amidst the cheers and laughter. The people of the Tiger Subdue tribe were already prepared. They lined up in a straight line and faced Shin 23. When Shin 23 swung his sword, everyone raised their weapons and acted at the same time in unison to block his giant sword. Even though it was far from Shin 23's full strength, it was still extremely frightening. The length of the giant sword was actually slightly longer than the group of 20 people. When the sword swung down, the heavy sword chi created a huge gale that whistled and reverberated in the ancient public square. The collision between the 20 swords and the giant sword was like a collision between two cultivation planets. The tremendous force caused the surrounding space to distort. On one side was a small group of 20 people while on the other side was a giant that was 14 to 15 zhang tall. The scene was quite spectacular. In the end, Shin 23, who was tall and strong, had a slight advantage in this collision. Even though the members of the Tiger Subdue tribe managed to block his first attack, 6 or 7 of them either had their weapons broken or were bleeding from their palms. All of them were shocked. Was this the Shin rank corpse devil with limited strength? Even if it was not at its peak, it still possessed such terrifying strength. It was really not to be underestimated. The experts of the Tiger Subdue tribe did not dare to be careless. All of them took out their weapons again. Without giving them much time, Shin 23 swung his sword again. The force of his attack was still so strong that it created a huge gale. The hair bun of some of the experts of the Tiger Subdue tribe was blown away by the strong gale. Their messy hair scattered in the wind, making them look extremely disheveled. The members of the Tiger Subdue tribe still managed to block the second attack. Then, it was the third attack, the fourth attack. Shin 23's strength seemed to never run out. Every time he swung his giant sword, his strength did not weaken at all. However, the members of the Tiger Subdue tribe were gradually losing strength. By the 11th attack, some of them were starting to run out of strength and had no choice but to retreat. By the 19th attack, the members of the Tiger Subdue tribe who still had strength were only the 3 early-stage thought fragmentation realm experts. By the 24th attack, even the 3 early-stage thought fragmentation realm experts were exhausted. They had no choice but to call a halt to the 25th attack. 24 attacks meant 2,400 points. The leader of the Tiger Subdue tribe, a middle-aged man, looked at the score on the scoreboard and sighed softly. It was good enough to get such a result in the first round. If they continued, they would be exhausted and injured. Seeing that the members of the Tiger Subdue tribe had called a halt to the trial, Shin 23 did not continue his attack. He put down his giant sword and stuck it back into the stone ground. He said indifferently, "Next." As his voice fell, another team's scoreboard shone with a golden light. Then, the members of the Tiger Subdue tribe retreated and the second team stepped forward. The second team was the Valley tribe from the West River grassland. This Valley tribe was not as strong as the Tiger Subdue tribe. They gave up after taking 14 attacks from Shin 23. There was nothing special about the entire process. Of course, just like the members of the Tiger Subdue tribe, before the trial began, Shin 23 still said the same thing stupidly. "Give me a gift. If you don't give me, I will kill you." Then, the gift he received was still a mouthful of phlegm from the members of the Valley tribe. Then, Shin 23 nodded his head stupidly in satisfaction. He was very satisfied with this gift. It was not that he was really satisfied. It was just that his memory was purposely changed and he felt that it was a good thing to be spat on. The person who changed Shin 23's memory really has a bad sense of humor. Is it fun to humiliate a dead person like this? Ning Fan frowned even more. He felt that the laughter of those who laughed at Shin 23's stupidity was ear-piercing and annoying. After the Valley tribe, it was the Sky Howl tribe's turn. They got 16 attacks. After them, it was the Purple Sand tribe's turn to take part. The Sea Bow tribe's result was 9 attacks. Not all the tribes sent a large number of body cultivators to take part in the trial. There were also some teams who came with the intention of giving up on the trial of force and focusing on the trial of illusion. Thus, they did not send too many body cultivators in their teams. Thus, the results of the trial of force were naturally not optimistic. Time passed by slowly. More and more tribes obtained the results of the trial of force. However, there were only a few tribes who obtained more than 20 attacks. There were already 70 to 80 tribes who obtained the results. However, only 6 of them obtained more than 20 attacks. Among them, the highest result was 33 attacks. Up to this point, the trial had been going on peacefully. The spectators who were watching the trial gradually became bored. Ning Fan, on the other hand, knitted his brows tightly. He had seen the scene of Shin 23 being spat on for fun for 70 to 80 times. Of course, he would not feel happy about it. He did not like insults to his dignity. The only thing that interested him was that Sovereign Tu, who was hiding in the illusory sea tribe under the alias of Qingling, also did not spit on Shin 23. Instead, he took out a handkerchief and wiped the phlegm on Shin 23's leg without caring about how dirty it was. His action directly enraged Shin 23. With his limited spiritual intelligence, he could not understand why that woman called Qingling would wipe off his gift. In a fit of rage, he swung his giant sword even more fiercely. It directly caused the sword force that the illusory sea tribe had to endure to be much stronger than the other tribes. Of course, their result was even worse. The pitiful illusory sea tribe was not a tribe that was good at body refinement in the first place. Moreover, they had to endure Shin 23's angry treatment. Thus, they only obtained a pitiful result of 4 attacks, placing them at the bottom of the entire trial of force. Ning Fan even deliberately released his spirit sense and heard the funny conversation between the members of the illusory sea tribe. Damn it! You are really being naughty again. Why did you provoke this Shin 23 for no reason? Don't you know that the better you treat Shin 23, the more he thinks that you are up to no good? They are all fools. They are so stupid. You went to take advantage of your kindness and enraged him, causing us to be at the bottom. You. Just wait and see how I will deal with you on the bed when we return home after the mausoleum seizing battle. That was Qingling's husband, the man with a scar on his face. As for Qingling, she lowered her head as if she had been wronged. Her eyes that no one could see were filled with extremely terrifying killing intent. Ning Fan actually laughed for the first time when he saw this scene. He could imagine that Sovereign Tu's heart must be broken at this moment. Being ordered around by a man with a scar on his face who was just a man with a scar on his face must be unbearable. As Ning Fan expected, Sovereign Tu's heart was indeed broken at this moment. If it wasn't because she had yet to achieve the purpose of this trip, she almost wanted to expose her identity and kill him. Damn it! What kind of lousy identity did her subordinates arrange for her? Not only did she become someone's Dao companion, she even got teased and humiliated by him. She even had to deal with him on the bed. Hee hee. After I finish my task, I will definitely repay those few foolish subordinates of mine. Unfortunately, in Ning Fan's eyes, the previous trials were just a small highlight. Fortunately, just when the audience started to feel bored, a dark horse team of the second round of the trial of force appeared on the stage. Instantly, everyone's spirits were lifted. The Qi Feng tribe. That was a team that had an immortal venerable expert like Venerable Hongzong. Finally, a decent team has appeared. Chapter 1034. Venerable Hongzong was a skinny old monk. As he had just advanced to the immortal venerable realm not long ago, his qi was still a little weak. However, compared to the other thought fragmentation realm cultivators, he was much stronger. His aura field was not something that a true immortal could compare with. The aura field of the eternal immortal swept across the surroundings. Those who saw the eternal immortal venerable for the first time in Luli City were even more frightened. They felt that there was no other way to resist the pressure except to kneel down. Oh. Finally, it's Hongzhang's turn. This kid is not bad. He can be considered as an outstanding person to be able to reach the immortal venerable realm in 5 million years. It's a pity that he is not good at body refinement. Otherwise, he could probably lead the Qi Feng division to achieve 100 swords. At the top of the high platform, one of the 5 Middle Region sovereigns who had been silent all this while finally spoke. It was the Bone Spirit Sovereign. He, Taoist Bone Spirit, don't look down on Hongzong. As far as I know, he has specially cultivated some kind of secret technique for the trial of force. Oh? I am curious what kind of secret technique can help a person who is not good at body refinement to achieve 100 swords. Taoist Buddha Sob seems to think highly of this Hongzong. The Bone Spirit Sovereign's eyes flickered and asked. Taoist Buddha Sob, please continue to watch. You will know why I like him. The Buddha Sob sovereign laughed strangely but did not answer. Just as Great Emperor Bone Spirit had expected, although there was an immortal venerable in the Chi Feng troop, the result was not so good that it would shock the world. When they reached the 44th strike, everyone except Hongzong had already retreated due to exhaustion. Only Hongzong was left to face Shin 23. Hongzong was indeed not good at body refinement. Although he was an immortal venerable expert, his body was not as strong as some peak thought fragmentation realm cultivators who specialized in body refinement. Under the attack of Shin 23's giant sword, he seemed to be in a difficult situation. On the 60th sword, Hongzong started to feel tired. On the 75th sword, he was already panting. It seems like the 75th sword is the limit of the Chi Feng division. The Bone Spirit Sovereign's eyes suddenly lit up. Hongzong suddenly flipped his hand and took out several gloomy talismans. With a loud shout, he slapped them on the ground. Immediately, several gloomy circles appeared on the ground out of thin air. From within the circles, several ferocious-looking ghosts were born one after another. Is he relying on the ghost transformation technique? I didn't expect him to have mastered this kind of ancient Buddha technique. He is indeed extraordinary. The Bone Spirit Emperor's tone changed as he complimented. Even Tiandu, 100 Flowers, and Lu Tuo looked at Hongzong with a weird gaze. Only Buddha Sob seemed to have known about this since the beginning, and he chuckled with a strange expression and wasn't surprised at all. After Hongzong summoned many ghosts, he suddenly used a spell to devour the ghosts. Immediately, his originally thin body began to swell, and dark red eerie patterns appeared on his skin. Fangs grew out of his mouth, and a ghost horn grew out of his head. Those who didn't know would think that Hongzong had turned into a ferocious ghost. However, his physical strength had a terrifying increase. Originally, 75 sword strikes was his limit, but now, he received 104 sword strikes in one go. It's a pity that this kid's ghost transformation technique isn't perfect yet. Otherwise, he would have been able to obtain a better result from eating those ghosts. The Buddha Sob Emperor sighed. Suddenly, he asked Lu Tuo Emperor in a strange manner, "Fellow Taoist Lu Tuo, what do you think about this kid compared to your disciple? This kid is not worth mentioning. How can he be compared to my 100 Lu sect's disciple?" The Lu Tuo Emperor laughed arrogantly. "I also think that this kid is better than killing 100 Lu sect." The Buddha Sob Emperor laughed and said no more. He continued to watch the next trial. After the Chi Feng division, a few more matches passed. Then, it was the turn of the other Dark Horse team of this mausoleum-seizing battle, the Sea Shaman division. The Sea Shaman division's which Wu Yan was also not an expert in body refinement, but she was slightly stronger than Hongzong. Her result in this round was 1 sword strike more than the Chi Feng division. 105 sword strikes, it's a pity. As far as I know, this girl has a deep understanding of poison techniques. Although many poison techniques have great side effects, they can enhance one's physical body. If this girl used them, it wouldn't be difficult for her to obtain a higher result. The Bone Spirit Emperor shook his head and sighed. Fellow Taoist Bone Spirit, I'm afraid you've forgotten that Wu Yan isn't aiming for the first place. She doesn't intend to spend too much effort in the first round. She has made up her mind to preserve her strength and fight for the 3rd place. She's not sure Dang's match, let alone my 100 Lu sect's disciple. However, as long as she can defeat the Chi Feng division's Hongzong, she will be able to obtain the 3rd place and obtain the South Sea spring water. What a good plan. I think fellow Taoist 100 Flowers asked her to do this. It was the Lu Tua Emperor who spoke and glanced at the 100-Flower Emperor coldly. Obviously, the Lu Tua Emperor knew that Wu Yan had secretly helped the 100-Flower Emperor. So what if I'm the one who asked her to do so? There's no rule in the mausoleum seizing battle that says otherwise. The 100-Flower Emperor was straightforward. She admitted it directly and gave the Lu Tua Emperor a cold glare. The atmosphere between the two suddenly became tense. Fortunately, the Buddha Sob Emperor came to lighten the atmosphere immediately. He told a few extremely vulgar and boring jokes but failed to make anyone laugh. After the awkwardness, he suddenly asked the Lu Tua Emperor with a strange smile. Fellow Taoist Lu Tua, do you really think that this Wu Yan is inferior to your 100 Lu sect's disciple? Of course. This Wu Yan is nothing. How can she be compared to my disciple? The Lu Tua Emperor said conceitedly. I also think that this Wu Yan is inferior to your disciple. However, it's still fine to be your disciple's wife. The Buddha Sob Emperor's words seemed to be a joke. However, the Lu Tua Emperor's eyes instantly turned gloomy as he heard the Buddha Sob Emperor's sarcasm. The Buddha Sob Emperor was mocking his disciple for not having a wife. What about Sha Bai Lu's wife? He was killed by Sha Bai Lu. His disciple was a wolf. He was a crazy wolf that would not recognize his own kin. He even cultivated the extremely cruel and merciless Tao of kinslaying. This Sha Bai Lu came from the Lu clan of the Colored Glass City. However, he was ostracized in the Lu clan because of this. Killing Bai Lu was indeed powerful, but this power was obtained by killing his father, mother, brother, sister, wife, son, and a series of other crazy acts. Moreover, it wasn't that Sha Bai Lu didn't want to kill his master. This was also the main reason why the Lu Tua Great Emperor hated Sha Bai Lu. The current Sha Bai Lu didn't kill his master because he wasn't strong enough. However, if this disciple had enough fated chances to break through to the immortal emperor realm one day, he would probably turn around and wave his butcher's knife at Lu Tua Great Emperor. Now that the Buddha Sob Emperor was mocking this matter, the Lu Tua Great Emperor was naturally unhappy. He snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. The trial was still going on. After the Sea Magus tribe, there were a few more teams that didn't stand out. After that, it was the Stoneman tribe's turn. The Stoneman tribe's immortal Venerate Stoneman was very popular. His appearance naturally attracted countless people's attention. After Stoneman tribe's immortal Venerate Stoneman went up, he glanced at Sha Bai Lu's direction. When he saw that Sha Bai Lu's eyes were closed and didn't care about his trial result, he was so angry that he laughed. You Sha Bai Lu. Do you think I'm still a 1 Tribulation Immortal Venerate? Now, I'm a 2nd Tribulation Immortal Venerate. I didn't come for the first place in this mausoleum seizing battle. I came here to take revenge on you. Today, I will return all the humiliation you gave me. All of you, back off. Sha Bai Lu is a one-man team. I don't need you to help me participate in the trial of force. It turned out that Shi Dang was extremely arrogant. He had ordered all the experts of the Stoneman tribe behind him to retreat and only faced Shin 23 alone. Give me a gift. If not, I will kill you. It was still Shin 23's stupid demand. You want a gift? No. I don't have the habit of spitting everywhere. If you want to fight, let's fight. Stoneman tribe shouted. This immediately infuriated Shin 23. Not giving him a gift was a humiliation to him. This was a fact that he firmly believed in the depths of his memory. This Stoneman tribe was really hateful. Boom. Shin 23's giant sword slashed down. Stoneman tribe actually laughed and used his palm to receive the giant sword. His body was as hard as the ground of Central Continent. With Shin 23's limited cultivation, he naturally couldn't cut through the defense of Stoneman tribe's body with the rusty blunt sword. Stoneman tribe used his body that had been painstakingly cultivated for many years to resist the giant sword. It wasn't because he was careless, but because of his strength. 1 sword, 2 swords, 3 swords. In just 100 breaths, Stoneman Tribe had received 200 swords in succession before he began to pant. After 349 swords, Stoneman Tribe's strength was finally exhausted. Shin 23 was indeed powerful. His cultivation was already so terrifying even when sealed. What kind of cultivation would he have when he was at his peak? Unfortunately, Stoneman Tribe's intelligence was too low. Otherwise, Stoneman Tribe would use the connections of the sacred mountain to bring this powerful Shin Corpse Devil back to the Stoneman Tribe and make him a guardian Corpse Devil. 349 swords meant 34,900 points. Such a result was really frightening. If it was in the previous competitions, this score could directly disregard the second round. How is this Stoneman Tribe? Can he be better than your disciple? Buddha Sob Emperor asked in a strange voice. Of course not. Luo Tua Emperor said impatiently while thinking why this Buddha Sob Emperor kept asking such questions. Ha, I also think not. Then why did you ask? Are you making fun of me? Luo Tua Emperor was even more displeased, but because he was not as strong as Buddha Sob Emperor, he suppressed his displeasure. The entire plaza was drowned in the cheers for Stoneman Tribe. Some people felt it was a pity that Stoneman Tribe didn't spit on Shin 23, which made it less fun for them to watch a fool. However, more people believed that Stoneman Tribe didn't spit on Shin 23 because he wanted to provoke the Corpse Devil on purpose. To be able to obtain such a frightening result under the Corpse Devil's rage, Stoneman Tribe was worthy of being one of the favorites to win the second round of the Mausoleum Seizing competition. It should be your turn next, right? I remember that apart from my Stoneman Tribe, there are only you and the external cultivators of the Pagoda Wood Tribe. After Stoneman Tribe left the stage, he purposely came to Sha Bailu's side and spoke in a boastful manner. Sha Bailu, who was resting with his eyes closed, finally opened his eyes slightly. The way he looked at Stoneman Tribe was filled with disdain. Are you trying to show off in front of me with such a trivial result? Do you know why I have never participated in the Mausoleum Seizing competition? It's because there are too many trash like you. You can't pique my interest at all. The only one who can pique my interest is him. Sha Bailu sneered and pointed at Ning Fan. Shi Dang's expression immediately turned extremely gloomy. He was actually called a trash by Sha Bailu. Damn it! Damn it! When the illusory trials begins, I will definitely teach this Sha Bailu a lesson. As for Ning Fan, whom Sha Bailu thought highly of, Shi Dang did not take him seriously at all. That Ning Fan was just an external cultivator with limited cultivation base. If his cultivation base was at its peak, perhaps Shi Dang would pay more attention to him. Unfortunately, with the restriction of the punishment ring, it was not worth mentioning. Sha Bailu. Just you wait. I will certainly take your life in the illusory trials. Shi Dang said ruthlessly and retreated back to his team. Most of the spectators were looking forward to the upcoming illusory trials even more. The battle between Sha Bailu and the external cultivator Ning Fan was not the only thing worth watching. Perhaps the old and new grudges between Shi Dang and Sha Bailu would also be present. After the Stoneman Tribe, only Sha Bailu and Ning Fan had yet to participate in the trials. According to the usual practice of the Mausoleum Seizing battle, a one-man team would usually stay until the end. After all, a one-man team was usually full of highlights and could be used as the finale. Sha Bailu's scoreboard lit up before Ning Fan did. He smiled coldly and glanced at Ning Fan's direction. Then, with a flash of blood-red light, he directly appeared in front of Shin 23. His action immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. This Sha Bailu was quite impressive to be able to use an escaping technique in the middle state where the sky was forbidden. As soon as he entered the arena, he seemed to have no patience at all. He was too lazy to waste any time. Before Shin 23 could open his mouth, he had already spat impatiently on Shin 23's body. You sure, have some self-awareness. Then, let's begin, Shin 23 nodded his head in satisfaction. He swung his giant sword at Sha Bailu's head. As for Sha Bailu, he also did not use any weapon. Instead, he directly used his physical body to receive the giant sword. 10 strikes, 20 strikes, 30 strikes, 100 strikes, 200 strikes, 300 strikes. It was only until the 448th strike that Shah Bailu felt a little out of breath. On the 594th strike, Shah Bailu's strength was exhausted. He took a step back and did not waste any time talking to Shin 23. Then, the entire square erupted into cheers. The cheers were even louder than Sherdang's. There were also countless people who believed that Sherdang would be the champion. Now, they instantly turned to Shah Bailu's side. Some of them also began to sigh inwardly because of the conflict between Shah Bailu and Ning Fan. If they did not know how terrifying Shah Bailu was, they would still think that the two of them were worth watching and could compete with each other. However, looking at the current situation, there was no doubt that Shah Bailu was the heaven while Ning Fan was the earth. Shah Bailu would be easily trampled under his feet. I'm afraid the trial of illusion will be the burial place of that external cultivator with the surname Ning. Some people secretly believed this. As for Ning Fan, who was the last to enter the arena, the crowd did not have much expectations. What was Ning Fan's cultivation base? It would be fine if he was at his peak. Unfortunately, he was an external cultivator who was sealed by the punishment ring. It was impossible for him to achieve a high result in the trial of force. It would be better for this person to quickly enter the arena and end the trial of force. Then, he would begin the next round of the trial of illusion. Just as countless people were looking forward to the result, Ning Fan's scoreboard glowed with golden light. He tapped the scoreboard and the golden light faded away. Only then did he walk towards Shin 23. In fact, Ning Fan also felt pity for this Shin 23. He would never sympathize with the weak. However, he had always admired those who would rather die than submit. This Shin 23 was unyielding when he was alive. However, he was fooled by others after his death. How pitiful. If it was possible, Ning Fan really wanted to give Shin 23 a true release. He wanted to turn him into ashes and make him disappear from the crowd's eyes. However, he could not do that. He did not want to cause more trouble. Moreover, he knew that he did not have the strength to free Shin 23, who possessed terrifying strength. However, for some unknown reason, the closer he got to Shin 23, the more he could feel the desolation from his body. It was not an illusion. It really existed. Even though his soul had already dissipated, his physical body was still sad and unwilling. He was unwilling to be someone's puppet. He was unwilling to serve a group of ancient Buddhas. He was unwilling. As he got closer, Ning Fan seemed to hear Shin 23's angry roar from the depths of his soul. It was an indescribable feeling. It was a kind of connection between two ancient devils. It was a kind of appeal that came from the bloodline of the other party. Fellow clansmen. Give me release. I will repay your karma with my broken body and blood. Give me release. I, Z-Do Immortal Cultivator, cannot be a slave. Z-Do Immortal Cultivator, cannot lower my head. Z-Do Immortal Cultivator. This ancient devil was actually an expert who came from Z-Do Immortal Domain when he was alive. Most of the Z-Do Immortal Cultivators would die in battle to protect Z-Do Immortal Domain. Is this person one of them? If Ning Fan only felt that Shin 23 was pitiful and pitiful before, he actually felt deep respect for him now. Z-Do Immortal Cultivator. Why would he hesitate to fight? Why would he be afraid of a battle? His life and death were all for Z-Do Immortal Cultivator. Z-Do Immortal Cultivator's corpse should not have such a desolate ending. Since you want to be released, I will send you to your death. Ning Fan's powerful voice was drowned in the wind and rain. No one could hear it. The rain began to fall. At the moment when Ning Fan activated the Tao Law of Rain, the protective golden light of the God Exterminating Shield was a defensive ability. It could not be used. With his limited cultivation base, it was almost impossible for him to withstand more attacks than Shah Bailu without using the protective golden light. Moreover, his current plan was not to withstand more attacks than Shah Bailu. He wanted to destroy the sword of this Do immortal cultivator. He wanted to destroy his shackles. He wanted to destroy his golden hoop. He wanted to destroy his corpse. He wanted to destroy everything he had. He wanted to send him to ashes. He wanted to send him to death. Strange. The sun was still high in the sky just now. Why did it suddenly rain? The residents of Lioli City found it strange. However, there were some who noticed the changes in Ning Fan's body and were shocked. That external cultivator had actually comprehended the Tao law of rain and fused the power of the Tao law of rain into his physical body to increase the offensive power of his physical body. On the high platform, Buddha Tier Emperor's eyes lit up and he asked Emperor Lu Tua again. Fellow Taoist Lu Tua, what do you think about this external cultivator with the surname Ning compared to your disciple? Of course, he's not as good as him. This young man is just an ant. How can he be compared to my disciple? I'm sure fellow Taoist Buddha Tier also thinks so. No, I don't think so. I think this young man is a little stronger than your disciple. Ha! Fellow Taoist Buddha Tier just loves to tell jokes. However, this joke is not funny. If you don't believe me, why don't we make a bet? On the high platform, Buddha Tier Emperor was making a bet with Emperor Lu Tua. Below the high platform, Shen 23 was asking Ning Fan for a gift like a fool. Give me a gift. If you don't give me, I will kill you. If you can do it, then come and kill me. Can you do it after being imprisoned for so long? You are courting death. Shen 23 seemed to be enraged by Ning Fan. He increased the strength of his giant sword and slashed at Ning Fan's head. That sword was more than 10 zhang in size. Compared to it, Ning Fan, who was not tall in the first place, looked even smaller. In the midst of the wind and rain, Ning Fan raised his left hand and billowing black qi immediately emerged from it. Before the spectators could see what the black qi was, they were already shocked to find that Ning Fan's left hand had already pressed on the edge of the giant sword at lightning speed. His 5 fingers had even directly penetrated the giant sword that was forged from the immemorial star system, leaving 5 hideous holes on it. This external cultivator actually damaged the weapon of the corpse devil that is taking the test. That is an immemorial devil weapon forged from the immemorial star system. Even if it has been around for a long time and its spiritual power has greatly decreased, it is impossible for it to be damaged so easily. Didn't you see that even Shi Dang and Sha Bailu couldn't do it? How did he do it? Wait. That's not a hand. It's a claw. As the black qi that lingered around Ning Fan's left hand dissipated, 5 sharp claws of a demon beast appeared in front of everyone. The moment Tu Huang, who was disguised as Qing Ling, saw this scene, he was slightly surprised. This little external cultivator actually dares to use this spiritual equipment. Chapter 1035. What Ning Fan used was obviously the prize he obtained from the blood martial arena, the Hui Dragon Claw. Seeing that Ning Fan had refined this spiritual equipment in just a few days, Tu Huang could not help but feel slightly surprised even with his experience. The Hui Dragon was not a native species of the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. According to Tu Huang's knowledge, the Hui Dragon seemed to be a species of the true world. As for the Hui Dragon in the Supreme Pill Sacred Region, it was said that the Medicine Gatherer Saint, the Southern Alchemy Saint, captured it from a certain devil region in the true world. The Hui Dragon in the Supreme Pill Sacred Region only lived on the continent of the 10th grade Ominous Domain. There were very few of them. However, any one of them had a cultivation base that was beyond the ancient era. The Hui Dragon was a type of devil dragon. It was known for its hard and sharp scales, horns and armor. The hardness of its scales and horns was comparable to the immemorial star iron, while its sharpness was even better than the immemorial star iron of the same grade. The magic treasures and weapons forged from it were even better than the immemorial star iron of the same grade. The magic treasure spirit equipment forged from the Hui Dragon's scales and horns was naturally extremely sharp. However, it had a drawback: its devil chi was too heavy. It was not suitable for cultivators who were not on the devil path at all. Even for cultivators on the devil path, they would need countless years of hard work to refine and subdue a Hui Dragon magic treasure spirit equipment. Not everyone could successfully refine the Hui Dragon Claw within a few days, even for an ancient devil. Only an ancient devil with at least ancestral bloodline could easily suppress the monstrous devil chi in the Hui Dragon Claw and quickly subdue it. Thinking of this, Tu Huang could not help but narrow her beautiful eyes. Even though she knew that Ning Fan was an ancient devil, she did not know what level he was at. She thought that under the great illusion of the illusory world where the devil race was sealed by blood, this young man would at most be an ancient devil with royal bloodline. However, she did not expect him to have such a powerful ancient devil bloodline. Even though the Hui Dragon Claw was just a 12 Nirvana-acquired spirit equipment, it was forged from the sharp claw of an immortal Emperor Realm Nightmare Dragon after all. It might not have many variations in its abilities, but in terms of sharpness, almost none of the magic treasures below the innate spirit equipment could resist it. In addition to the offensive power of the Tao of Rain, its offensive power was naturally more outstanding. Thus, it was not difficult for it to make a hole on an immemorial devil weapon whose spiritual nature had decayed. Seeing how Ning Fan managed to damage the giant sword of the corpse devil with a single strike, the surrounding people exclaimed in surprise. Ning Fan's was not that surprised. After refining this spiritual equipment, he had tested its power in private. He had already expected such an attack. The Black Dragon Claw was not an external spiritual equipment. Instead, it was equipped on the bones of Ning Fan's palm, skin, flesh, and blood. Looking from the outside, one could not see the existence of the Hui Dragon Claw. They could only see that his left hand was showing signs of demonization. Almost his entire left arm was covered with fine Hui Dragon scales. Blue veins could be seen under the scales. The fingernails on his left hand had grown to 7 inches long. Looking from afar, they shone with cold light. It was as if they were not fingernails but sharp blades that could cut through anything. The first sword, even though the sword was pierced by Ning Fan's fingers, Shen 23 still had a numb expression on his face as if this matter was just a trivial matter in his eyes. His bruised and stiff wrist only needed to casually shake the huge sword, and instantly there was an unimaginable huge force, like a raging wave hitting the shore, overbearingly spreading through the sword body. All of a sudden, Ning Fan felt a sharp pain coming from the bones of his left hand. His hand was shaken by that huge force and he could no longer hold the huge sword. How could he not know that in terms of physical strength, there was a huge gap between him and Shen 23? Even if Shen 23 was suppressed in various ways and could not exert his full strength, his strength was still above Ning Fan's. As if it was just a routine, Shen 23 continued to slash Ning Fan for the second time after the first sword. It was still an incomparably heavy sword. That kind of heaviness was not only because of the weight of the sword and the strength of Ning Fan but also because of the changes of the Tao law. Today was Ning Fan's first time seeing this kind of Tao law. Even with his many years of experience in cultivation, he actually could not tell what kind of Tao it was. He only felt that it was hazy and chaotic and he could not see it clearly. Moreover, he did not have the time to think too much at this moment. Instead of retreating, he moved forward. The devil claw on his left hand shone with a bright black light. His 5 fingers slashed upwards and 5 rays of black light in the shape of a crescent moon broke through the air and went against the huge sword that was falling from the sky. Boom! A deafening explosion resounded. The result was that they were evenly matched. The 5 rays of light blocked the second sword and even left 5 nicks on the edge of Shen 23's huge sword. Moreover, there was a voice that seemed to have directly resounded from the depths of Ning Fan's soul. My kin. Give me. Release, I will repay you the karma with my broken corpse and blood, give me. Release, you are the master of the Devil Conferral Summit. I can feel, give me. Devil burial, devil burial. What devil burial? The master of the Devil Conferral Summit? What does that mean? At this moment, Ning Fan had a very strange feeling. He realized that this kind of voice that came from the depths of his soul was produced by the resonance between the bloodlines of 2 ancient devils. Without a doubt, the one who spoke was the senior ancient devil who had died countless years ago. It seemed like he had some kind of ability that allowed him to leave a trace of this ability in the devil blood of his corpse to transmit his last words. The others could not hear it except for him who was an ancient devil. Before Ning Fan had the time to think, the third sword came. Ning Fan had no choice but to brace himself to receive the third sword. It was not a big deal for him to receive 3 consecutive sword attacks. However, the fact that it left damage on the immemorial devil weapon in succession was indeed a little shocking. Naturally, the surroundings were filled with exclamations of surprise. Of course, other than exclamations, there were also some doubts. One should know that the trial of force did not allow anyone to use magic techniques to block the slashes of the giant swords. Those who doubted it naturally thought that Ning Fan had used a method other than his physical strength to participate in the trial. However, those with discerning eyes could see that what Ning Fan used was just a piece of spiritual equipment that increased his physical strength. The reason why he used the sword attacks from afar was not his magic power but the legendary ancient devil essence chi. It did not violate the rules of the trial of force. The collision of force between Ning Fan and Shin 23 was still going on. The 4th sword, the 5th sword, the 14th sword. Ning Fan's forehead began to drip with sweat. However, it was quickly washed away by the rain. To him who was just a 9th Nirvana heavenly devil, taking on Shin 23's slashes head-on consumed a lot of his strength. As for Shin 23, even though he did not look tired at all, the cracks on his giant sword were increasing. Unfortunately, he who did not have a high level of spiritual intelligence obviously did not realize this. He was still swinging his sword continuously. However, what Ning Fan could not understand was that every time Shin 23 slashed his sword, he would ask Ning Fan for the devil burial in the form of a soul voice. "I'm from the same clan. Why don't you give me the devil burial? Lord of the Devil Conferral Summit. Why don't you set me free? I want the devil burial." What was the devil burial? How did Ning Fan know? The 15th sword, the 16th sword, the 42nd sword. Ning Fan understood that the 42nd sword strike was the limit of his physical strength. The essence chi of an ancient devil was not inexhaustible. Currently, he had almost exhausted all of the essence chi in his body after the 42nd round of battle. This Shin 23 was really strong. Heng Zong, Wu Yan, Shi Dang, Sha Bai Lu. Each of the experts who had achieved a result above 100 swords definitely did not live up to their reputation. In terms of body refinement, even Heng Zong, who was the weakest in body refinement, was far above him. The trial of force. This was a trial that tested one's body refinement realm. Ning Fan could strengthen the sharpness of his devil claws by attaching the Tao laws to them and slowly destroy Shin 23's giant sword. However, he could not increase his body refinement realm by attaching the Tao laws. If his ancient devil cultivation base was higher and if he had more essence chi in his body, he could also try to withstand 100 or even 200 sword strikes. However, he could not do it now. This was the so-called exhaustion. If he did not have any trump cards, he would probably be defeated by Shin 23's sword within a few moves. Could it be that I can only defeat Shin 23 and set him free only by using the luminous pearl that the Sovereign Slayer gave me to recover my cultivation base? Of course, those who were sealed by the Xing Ring were basically those with the cultivation base of Jie Shui. Even if he temporarily undid the seal on the Xing Ring, it would not be beneficial to increase the strength of his physical body. However, if he regains his cultivation base, he would at least be able to unleash the full power of the Tao laws that he had mastered. At the same time, he attaches many Tao laws to the Hui Dragon Claw and attaches them to the strongest level. Ning Fan was confident that he could destroy everything that Shin 23 had within a few moves. The sharpness of the Hui Dragon Claw coupled with the enhancement of several types of Tao laws made its offensive power not to be underestimated. Just as Ning Fan was pondering, Shin 23's request came from the depths of his soul. The art of killing is the proof of the master of the Devil Conferral Summit. You are the chosen successor of Lord Mo Zhong. My lord, please use the art of killing to give me a devil burial. the art of killing was actually the proof of the master of the Devil Conferral Summit? He was chosen to be the master of the Devil Conferral Summit just because he knew the art of killing? It was Ning Fan's first time hearing about this. In the past, he only thought that he had learned a technique from Great Emperor Mo Zhong. However, he did not expect that there was actually such a great meaning behind this technique. Of course, now was not the time to think about this meaning. What made Ning Fan curious was what exactly did it mean by using the art of killing to give him a devil burial. He did not understand why Shin 23 would mention this. Perhaps, he could try to listen to Shin 23's request and use the art of killing to see how he could give Shin 23 a devil burial. With that in mind, Ning Fan secretly activated the art of killing. At first, he did not feel anything. However, a moment later, his expression changed. It was as if the sea of people had turned silent. However, countless unwilling roars could be heard from heaven and earth, 42 swords. It seems like he is already close to this young man's limit. If this result is achieved by others, it would be considered not bad. However, compared to the result of my 100 Pavilions disciple, it's not worth mentioning. Fellow Taoist Buddha Sob, do you still think that this young man is stronger than my 100 Pavilions disciple? Great Emperor Lu Tua chuckled and said to Buddha Sob in the direction of Buddha Sob. However, his tone carried a hint of sarcasm. Fellow Taoist shouldn't underestimate this young man. He should still have some tricks up his sleeves. Don't forget that he is an ancient devil. I can sense the chi of some kind of lost ability of the ancient devil from his body. Buddha Sob seemed to have great confidence in Ning Fan. Lost ability of the ancient devil? Ancient devils are inferior living beings. Legend has it that the lost abilities of the ancient devils are unfathomable. However, in the eyes of Buddha cultivators like us, the abilities of the ancient devils are nothing. So what if this young man knows one or two of the lost abilities of the ancient devils? Emperor Lu Tua said disdainfully. His tone was filled with pride as a Buddha cultivator. The lost abilities of the ancient devils had the word lost in their names. Naturally, most of them were lost ultimate arts. The inheritance of the lost ultimate arts of the ancient devils had long been cut off. Even their names were rarely passed down. Even though Emperor Lu Tua was an immortal emperor, he had only heard of 3 types of lost abilities of the ancient devils. The bone-crushing weapon technique, the devil eye transformation technique and the great devil space escape technique were not to say that these abilities were not powerful enough. However, there were some ultimate arts in the Buddhist Dharma that specialized in learning these few types of ancient devil abilities. In that case, Emperor Lu Tua naturally would not think that the lost abilities of the ancient devils were anything special. Buddhas naturally had their own pride when facing devils. It was also reasonable for them to look down on the abilities of the devil Tao. Emperor Lu Tua did not think that Ning Fan had any extraordinary lost abilities of the ancient devils that could allow him to achieve a higher result. However, Buddha Sob did not think so. Buddha Sob was one of the few people in the Great Humble Clan who had a deep understanding of the ancient devils. If he was not mistaken, Ning Fan seemed to have been preparing a lost ability of the ancient devils from the moment he received the first sword attack. Most of the abilities of the ancient devils were restrained by the corresponding Buddhist Dharma. However, there were very few ancient devil abilities that were an exception. If I'm not mistaken, what this young man is using should be the great technique that was ranked first among the 9 great forbidden techniques on the Devil Conferral Summit in the past. Moreover, he has even reached the 3rd level of that technique. Buddha Sob already had a guess in his mind, but he did not show it on his face. Instead, he still put on a playful expression and said to Emperor Lu Tua, "Since fellow Taoist doesn't believe me, why don't we continue with our previous bet? Let's bet that this young man can receive 100 sword attacks. What do you think? Bet? Sure. If fellow Taoist loses, you have to give me your devil commanding 9 palaces iron that was refined for 3 million times. How about that?" Emperor Lu Tua said impolitely. Hee hee. That is an innate material that I have refined 3 million times. Fellow Taoist is really demanding an exorbitant price. Fine. Let's bet with that. However, since that's the case, I won't be courteous anymore. If fellow Taoist loses, I want the vicious Bai and Yuanzhe of your 7 great innate fire spirits. I don't want the violent sparrow. After all, that fire spirit has already become someone else's. Even if I want it, I won't come to you. Buddha Sob suddenly let out a strange smile. However, it was precisely the thorn in Emperor Lu Tuo's heart. The violent sparrow. The 7 great fire spirits that he had spent millions of years of hard work to refine were actually devoured by Ning Fan. How could Emperor Lu Tuo not feel resentful? You can only choose between the vicious Bai and Yuanzhe. Moreover, I can't give you all of them. At most, I can give you half of the vicious Bai. It's impossible for me to bet a complete fire spirit on your devil commanding 9 palaces iron. Since that's the case, I'll bet on the vicious Bai. Ha! That's great. I'll wait for your devil commanding 9 palaces iron. When Emperor Lu Tuo thought that he would be able to win the devil commanding 9 palaces iron from Buddha Sob in just a short while, his originally malicious expression instantly became much brighter. While they were talking, Ning Fan had already received the 49th sword attack. For this 49th sword attack, Ning Fan no longer had any excess essence chi to block the gigantic sword. Instead, he used his devil claw to block the gigantic sword. Ning Fan was barely able to withstand this sword attack. It was different from the first sword attack where he used his devil claw to block the sword attack. This time, Ning Fan no longer had much strength left. He was directly forced to take tens of steps back by the massive force of the gigantic sword. He looked rather miserable. At this point, Emperor Lu Tuo was almost certain that Ning Fan would definitely not be able to withstand the 50th sword attack. Even if he risked his life to receive a few more sword attacks, he certainly would not be able to withstand the number of 100 sword attacks. This time, he would definitely win the bet. Almost everyone had the same opinion as Emperor Lu Tuo. They all believed that Ning Fan had already reached his limit. The spectators in the surroundings sighed regretfully. Being able to withstand the 49th sword attack was enough to prove that Ning Fan's strength was extraordinary. It was enough for him to be ranked 5th in this trial of force, second only to Sha Bailu and the other 3 dark horses. However, that was all. It was still far from enough for him to compete against the 4 dark horses. Wu Yan, on the other hand, curled her lips. She was calmly meditating on the rainy ground with her eyes closed. She was not paying attention to Ning Fan's trial at all, as if it was just a trivial matter. Wu Yan, on the other hand, curled her lips. She, on the other hand, was watching Ning Fan's match. After all, she had heard that Ning Fan was also a helper invited by the 100-Flower Emperor. Initially, she wanted to find Ning Fan in this trial of illusion and join forces with him to fight for the 3rd place. Shi Dang, on the other hand, sneered coldly. He could not understand why Sha Bailu valued Ning Fan so much. 49 sword attacks. This result was just too inferior. It was not worth mentioning at all. As he had expected, an external cultivator whose cultivation base was sealed was really not worth mentioning. Sha Bailu, on the other hand, was a little disappointed. He did not expect that the prey he valued so highly only had this level. It really made him lose interest in killing him. At this moment, Ning Fan stopped moving and his expression turned solemn. The rain was still falling but it had stopped. The wind was still blowing but it had stopped. Countless devil roars seemed to be echoing in his ears. They were getting louder and more deafening. It was as if there were tens of thousands of ancient devils calling Ning Fan the same name at this moment. Venerated Lord. Give me a devil burial. Venerated Lord. Give me a devil burial. The same voice was actually coming from all directions. Those voices seemed to be coming from the tens of thousands of ancient devils in the Great Humble Clan. Shin 23 was definitely not the only ancient devils who had died here and turned into corpse devils. All of them were asking for help. If Ning Fan did not activate the killing technique, he would not be able to hear the pleas of these ancient devils. If Ning Fan did not activate the killing technique, those ancient devils who had passed away countless years ago would not be able to sense Ning Fan's existence from afar. Ning Fan did not know that the killing technique was a funeral song that only the ancient devils who had passed away could listen to. As the master of the Devil Conferral Summit, Immortal Emperor Mo Zhong had created the killing technique. One of the uses of this technique was to send the dead ancient devils to their graves. The physical bodies of ancient devils were incomparably strong. They were the best choice for making puppets. If the ancient devils who refused to submit to death were turned into puppets after their deaths, then as the master of the Devil Conferral Summit, he had a responsibility to send those puppets to their graves. This was called Devil Burial. In this place, Shen 23 was definitely not the only ancient devils who had turned into corpse devils and puppets. Shen 23 was definitely not the only one who desired Ning Fan to give him a devil burial. There were tens of thousands of them. In the beginning, Ning Fan's decision to send Shen 23 to his death was based on his respect and sympathy for the martyrs. But now, he suddenly felt a sense of responsibility. Since the Devil Conferral Summit had been destroyed, the one who possessed the killing technique would be the master of the Devil Conferral Summit. Of course, the title of master did not seem to have any meaning at all. There were no subordinates, no power, and no benefits. But so what? Ning Fan seemed to have gained a new understanding of the killing technique. At this moment, he seemed to have touched the essence of the killing technique. The essence of the killing technique was not to kill but a kind of responsibility. Killing should not be the goal. The goal should be to redeem oneself. For example, Immortal Sovereign Zido swept through the world in order to pacify the chaos in the world. There were also many Immortal Sovereign Zido cultivators who sacrificed their lives to protect the world. The reason why they spilled the blood of their enemies was just to protect their families and friends. It was not that Ning Fan did not understand this principle. It was just that it was his first time comprehending it from the killing technique. Killing to recover one's essence chi and killing to increase one's cultivation base were all techniques. As for the killing intent, it was the Tao. By combining the Tao of techniques, the killing technique was truly complete. Besides, the killing intent could not just be understood. It must come from the heart and be integrated into the technique. Only then could it be truly displayed. At this moment, when Ning Fan combined the Tao of techniques, he was surprised to find that he could actually absorb the essence chi of the dead ancient devils within a certain range using the killing technique and turn it into his own. It was not strange that the killing technique could recover one's essence chi. However, in the past, he needed to kill his enemies in order to recover his essence chi. Now, it was no longer necessary. It was as if he could absorb the essence chi of the dead ancient devils in the surroundings. Then, he could turn their essence chi into his own. Ning Fan had a strange feeling. The current killing technique was different. If he uses the killing technique to eliminate Shen 23 in front of him, it seemed like he could obtain some benefits. It was a benefit that only those who carried out the true intent of killing could obtain. It was the privilege of the former master of the Devil Conferral Summit, Great Emperor Mo. After a short moment of confusion, Shen 23's expression turned numb again. His identity as a corpse devil puppet did not allow him to violate his duty in the trial of force. He swung his gigantic sword at Ning Fan for the 50th time. Ning Fan's essence chi was recovering rapidly. He was quietly absorbing the essence chi that was constantly leaking out from Shen 23. Thus, he calmly received the 50th sword strike. Then, it was the 51st sword, 52nd sword, the 99th sword. The speed of his essence chi recovery was faster than the speed of his consumption. As for the source of his essence chi recovery, it was directly plundered from Shen 23's body. He plundered it in a way that no one would be able to discover. The cheers in the surroundings became louder and louder. Emperor Lu Tuo's expression became darker and darker. He was about to unbelievably lose the bet that he was originally confident in. When Ning Fan successfully received the 100th sword strike, Emperor Lu Tuo finally could not bear it anymore. He slammed the table and rose to his feet, almost forcefully stopping Ning Fan's trial of force. With this young man's cultivation base and means, it's impossible for him to receive the 100th sword strike. I suspect that this young man has already secretly destroyed the punishment ring in his body. We must immediately examine the punishment ring in his body. If it's true, not only will this young man's result in the trial of force be nullified, but he also deserves to be cut into pieces and killed on the spot. Someone, take this young man down and examine his body. As soon as Emperor Lu Tuo gave his order, 2 immortal venerables of the 10,000 ancient era behind him flashed and dashed towards Ning Fan, who was below the tall platform. However, before the 2 of them could reach Ning Fan, they were stopped by the other 4 immortal venerables at the same time. Emperor Lu Tuo's eyes immediately narrowed and his expression turned grim. Buddha's tear was also not strange. That bastard had always loved to stir up trouble and wished for the world to be plunged into chaos. Especially since he still had a bet with Emperor Lu Tuo this time, it was even more impossible for him to watch Emperor Lu Tuo nullify Ning Fan's result in the trial of force of 100 sword strikes. Gu Ling was also not strange. Gu Ling was always going against Emperor Lu Tuo. When he saw that Emperor Lu Tuo was against Ning Fan, he would naturally protect Ning Fan out of habit to make Emperor Lu Tuo unhappy. However, what Emperor Lu Tuo did not expect was that even Emperor Tiandu, who had always been unkind and hated external cultivators, would actually stand on Ning Fan's side. Fellow Taoist Lu Tuo, don't be anxious. The punishment ring in little friend Ning Fan's body has not been destroyed. As the person in charge of the middle state, I possess the weapon of the holy mountain. If this young man destroys the punishment ring, I will sense it immediately. Don't interfere with the trial of force. The trial of force will continue. Emperor Tiandu's slightly warning gaze and the way he addressed Ning Fan as little friend made Emperor Lu Tuo's heart skip a beat. The relationship between Emperor Tiandu and Ning Fan seems to be, not simple. If Emperor Lu Tuo still has to be wary of someone in the middle state, Emperor Tiandu would definitely be the most powerful one among them. The dispute on the high platform did not affect Ning Fan at all. He was still going through the trial of force. His results were constantly improving and he had already endured 110 sword strikes. He only took a glance at the high platform when he was free, but he did not look at it for a long time. If he did not gain another understanding of the killing technique, he would most likely need to temporarily lift the seal on his cultivation base in order to free Shin 23. However, now that his killing technique had advanced to a higher level, he did not need to do so. He could feel that the process of recovering his essence chi was actually a process of weakening and strengthening. The essence chi that he was using to recover was the essence chi that he was constantly extracting from Shin 23's body. Even killing Bai Lu did not weaken Shin 23, who had an enormous amount of essence chi. However, Ning Fan had slightly weakened Shin 23 through the process of weakening and strengthening his essence chi. Ning Fan found it hard to imagine how strong Shin 23 was when he was at his peak. The amount of essence chi that was left in his corpse was just too terrifying. Ning Fan did not know how many thousands or tens of thousands of swords would have to be used to completely consume all of it. Forget it. I'll just slowly deplete it. When Shin 23's essence chi is depleted, it will be the time for me to launch my attack. 200 sword strikes, 300 sword strikes, 400 sword strikes. On the 475th sword strike, Shin 23's gigantic sword cracked to its limit. With a cracking sound, it broke from the middle. If he relied on the killing technique to recover his essence chi, then he completely relied on Ning Fan's ferocious attacks to wear down the gigantic sword of this immemorial devil weapon. One should know that killing Bai Lu had used nearly 600 moves, but he could not even leave a dent on the gigantic sword. Ning Fan, on the other hand, had broken the gigantic sword before the 500 sword strikes. Regarding the grudge between Ning Fan and killing Bai Lu, the residents of Lioli City originally did not think highly of Ning Fan. Now, they were shocked to find out that Ning Fan seemed to be even stronger than killing Bai Lu. Hong Zong had long lost his composure. His eyes, which were originally filled with vigor, widened like a bull's eyes at the moment. He stared at Ning Fan, who was standing at the center of the square, in disbelief. Wu Yan was so shocked that she could not close her mouth. Shi Dang clenched his fists tightly with a gloomy expression. Killing Bai Lu, on the other hand, was trembling with excitement. When Ning Fan's result finally surpassed his and was approaching the result of 1,000 swords step by step, he actually threw his head back and laughed heartily, venting the excitement in his heart. His Tao could only be proven through killing. If he kills Ning Fan, it would certainly bring great significance to his path of cultivation. Sure enough, coming to the mausoleum seizing battle this time was the right choice. 1,000 swords. Hee. If this young man's result exceeds 1,000 swords, he will be able to obtain one of the 3 rewards that the sacred ancestor left behind in this place. However, this reward of 1,000 swords seems to have never been open to external cultivators before. Fellow Taoist Tian Du, please decide how to deal with this matter. Buddha Sob Emperor, who always wished for the world to be in chaos, suddenly let out a strange laugh. At that instant, the other monarchs all wore different expressions. As for Monarch Lu Tua, he let out a furious roar. No! I strongly oppose this. The Sacred Mountain Supreme Technique is one of the 3 rewards. Even immortal emperors like me find it difficult to obtain a technique from the Sacred Mountain. How can we let an outsider take advantage of it? Especially since this outsider is an ancient devil through and through. Chapter 1036. Oppose? Hee. How can you and I go against the will of the sacred ancestor? I'm very interested to know what the 3 rewards will be if the sacred ancestor's reward really appears. Buddha Tier Emperor did not hide the anticipation on his face at all. Buddha Tier Emperor was not the only one. Other than Emperor Lu Tua, the other great emperors were also very concerned about the reward that Ning Fan was about to receive from the sacred ancestor. Ning Fan had no idea about the discussions of the outside world. Currently, his mind was fully focused on the battle against Shin 23. His body and mind were in an extremely strange state. His feet were clearly standing on the ground, but he felt like he was standing on the top of the world. It was as if he was not standing on the ground at the moment but was standing on a high place that no one could reach, looking down at the billions of devil cultivators in the world. It was as if he was standing at the peak of all devils. This was the feeling that the art of slaughter gave Ning Fan after the fusion of the Tao of techniques and Tao. Moreover, after activating such a art of slaughter, Ning Fan's body vaguely emitted an indescribable noble aura. That aura was originally very fleeting. However, as Ning Fan clashed with Shin 23's broken sword time and time again, it gradually became clearer. He ruled the world and there was no devil that he could not defeat under the heavens. This was the aura of a devil lord that only the former master of the Devil Conferral Summit could possess. Because Ning Fan had only comprehended the art of slaughter, which was the fusion of the Tao of techniques and Tao, for a short period of time, his Devil Lord aura was not obvious yet. However, it was still captured by the sharp senses of some of the old monsters of the lowly clans. They were secretly shocked. What shocked them was, of course, the moment Ning Fan's Devil Lord aura appeared, it actually gave them orthodox Buddhist cultivators a feeling that he was unreachable. It was as if Ning Fan, who was an ancient devil, was the moon in the sky and the stars in the sea, while they, the Buddhist cultivators, were the mud in the field and the dust in the mulberry field. When facing Ning Fan, they actually felt an indescribable sense of inferiority. The Buddhas actually felt inferior when facing a devil. As arrogant Buddhist cultivators, they naturally felt ashamed. They just thought that it was because their Buddhist cultivation was not firm enough and they did not have any other guesses. Of course, it was even more impossible for them to express their humble feelings out loud and let their fellow Buddhist cultivators make fun of them. They still maintained a calm and composed expression on their faces and maintained their silence. 1147 swords, 1148 swords, 1149 swords. Ning Fan's score in the trial was still rising. This matter had exceeded everyone's expectations. What puzzled the spectators the most was that Ning Fan, who seemed to be having a hard time breaking through to the next 100 swords, actually became more and more skillful and effortless towards the end. He no longer showed any signs of exhaustion, as if the energy in his body was inexhaustible. On the contrary, the chi of the corpse devil Shin 23 was getting weaker. Under such circumstances, Ning Fan was gaining the upper hand in the battle against the corpse devil. The wind and rain howled. Amidst the sounds of the wind and rain, the deafening sounds of demonic claws and broken swords clashing against each other rang out incessantly. 2,000 swords. 3,000 swords. 4,000 sword strikes. 3,051 swords. Countless years ago, this was the highest score left behind by the examinees in the second round of the mausoleum seizing. Ning Fan had long surpassed this record. If there were no accidents, Ning Fan could even continue fighting against Shin 23. Because of the life-killing technique, there was no possibility of him running out of strength. As long as the conditions allowed it, it was possible for him to achieve the result of 10,000 or 100,000 swords. However, what Ning Fan pursued was not an insignificant and useless result. On the 4,714th sword strike, he finally destroyed the last half of the gigantic sword in Shin 23's hand with the sharpness of the Hui Dragon Claw. On the high platform and the surroundings of the public square, exclamations immediately resounded. There seems to be no end to this young man's result. I really want to know how many sword strikes this young man can withstand under his limit. Unfortunately, the sword of this corpse devil has been destroyed. It seems like this young man's result can only end here. After all, the result of the trial of strength is determined by the number of sword strikes he receives. If the sword is broken, before the Buddha Tier Emperor could finish his words, his eyes suddenly turned cold. After Ning Fan completely destroyed Shin 23's gigantic sword, he attacked Shin 23 again without any hesitation. What is this young man trying to do? Judging from the intense killing intent that was emanating from this young man's body, could it be that he wants to eliminate the corpse devil that is taking the exam? As if to prove the Buddha Tier Emperor's speculation, Ning Fan had already arrived in front of Shin 23 at the next moment. He leaped into the air and pierced the center of Shin 23's glabella with his left hand that was as sharp as a blade. The golden hoop that was restraining Shin 23's glabella also broke from the middle. It was completely unable to withstand the sharpness of the Hui Dragon Claw. There was no defensive resistance as expected. Shin 23 did not have the slightest bit of spiritual intelligence. He had no idea what he should do after his gigantic sword was destroyed. All he could do was stand there blankly and endure Ning Fan's fatal strike. His physical body was not as tough as he had expected. Shin 23's physical body was too decayed. If the experts of the Great Humble Clan were to properly repair his physical body, the defense of his physical body would definitely reach an extremely terrifying level. Of course, even if his physical body was just decayed, it was still enough to withstand most of the attacks. Unfortunately, most of the attacks here did not include the sharp attack of the Hui Dragon Claw. Shin 23 could not feel the pain at the center of his glabella. He just stared blankly at Ning Fan, who was standing right in front of him. Somehow, he felt a sense of relief. There seemed to be a trace of heat in his body, which made his heart that had stopped beating suddenly tremble. There was a trace of emotion in his heart. Many thanks. The physical body that had been dead for countless years actually expressed its gratitude to Ning Fan. Shin 23 did not know where this gratitude came from. He only felt that his exhausted eyes could finally close. Have a safe journey. Ning Fan seemed to be talking to himself. Suddenly, his left hand surged with essence chi and turned into a slash that exploded at the center of Shin 23's glabella. 5 devil claws slashed and rampaged inside Shin 23's body. In an instant, Shin 23's body that had been corroded by the passage of time was completely destroyed from the inside out. With a loud bang, Shin 23's physical body exploded and turned into a mist of blood. Then, the blood mist was washed away by the rain and turned into a pool of blood that carried the rotten smell of time. The entire place fell into dead silence. No one had expected that Ning Fan would kill the examiner corpse devil in the midst of the trial. Cruel. It was too cruel. Although the examiner corpse devil had a lowly status and was bullied by others, the people of Great Humble Clan had never thought of harming his life. Ning Fan, on the other hand, even dared to kill the examiner. His murderous nature was too strong. Since ancient times, Ning Fan was the first person who dared to kill the Examiner Corpse Devil in the trial of force. In just an instant, Ning Fan was regarded as a devil by the people who were proficient in Buddhist Dharma. No matter how strong this person was, he was undoubtedly a devil who killed without blinking an eye. Has it ended? Ning Fan was not interested in the gazes of the people who regarded him as a tiger or a leopard. He just closed his eyes and sensed it silently. After activating the life-killing technique, he could hear the sorrowful cries that others could not hear. After he destroyed Shin 23's corpse, the ancient devil cries that were spreading in the Great Humble clan were reduced by one. Was this the devil tomb that Shin 23 wanted? There was no tombstone, no coffin, no joss sticks, no mourning music, no worshippers, no friends, no old friends, no future, no past. There was only unfamiliarity everywhere. This was probably the simplest funeral in the world. However, compared to the life of a corpse devil, this kind of devil burial should be considered as a luxury. Shin 23 had obtained true peace. This was good enough. Rest in peace, This is, Ning Fan's eyes suddenly narrowed. Among the filthy blood on the ground, thousands of bloodlines suddenly flew out and flowed into his body. At first, he wanted to defend himself. However, after realizing that these bloodlines were actually beneficial to him, he just let them enter his body. Isn't this the benefit of sending Shin 23 to his funeral? Those bloodlines that entered Ning Fan's body were the essence of Shin 23's devil blood that was hidden deep in his flesh. Now that they entered Ning Fan's body, they directly dissolved into his blood as if there was no barrier between them. Instantly, the grade of Ning Fan's devil blood improved tremendously. Previously, he had already fused 4 drops of ancestral devil blood into his devil talisman. However, after killing Shin 23, there were signs of forming the 5th drop of ancestral devil blood. The 5th drop of ancestral devil blood was only 1/3 formed. It had yet to be completely formed. Even so, it still made Ning Fan's devil might increase by a lot. His ancient devil cultivation base had also improved tremendously. He was already halfway to the 10th Nirvana realm of the Heavenly Devil clan. If it was someone else, it would be considered as the result of millions of years of bitter cultivation. Could it be that the owner of the life-killing technique can obtain such great benefits by sending off every ancient devil? Ning Fan remained silent for a while. Then, he could not help but laugh. The reason why he chose to send off Shin 23 was because of his respect for the martyrs of Purple Battle. Of course, if he could obtain some benefits from it, he naturally would not reject it. Feeling the rapid increase of his cultivation base and the grade of his bloodline, Ning Fan did not know whether he should feel sad for Shin 23's death or feel happy for himself. However, the sudden change in the scene quickly dispelled his thoughts. After the bloodlines entered his body, the square suddenly shone with Buddha light and 3 dazzling golden treasure chests appeared in midair. There was also an unimaginably massive aura force that instantly swept across the place as if the sky was collapsing. Ning Fan was inwardly shocked. He had cultivated for many years and he was certainly not a weakling. However, under this aura force, he still felt powerless like an ant. This was actually the aura force of a saint. Fortunately, even though this aura force was massive, it did not have any oppressive intent. Instead, it was gentle like water. Otherwise, Ning Fan really did not know how to resist it. When the residents of Dabei who were watching the test felt the pressure of the saint, they cried out in surprise and knelt on the ground. Clearly, they did not expect the pressure of the saint to descend. The immortals and Buddhas on the high platform stood up one after another. Although they did not kneel, they did not dare to sit down in the face of the Buddha light that filled the sky. They stood respectfully. The fact that one could obtain a reward on top of 1,000 swords could not be hidden from the immortals and Buddhas present. However, most of the Dabei residents were still young and had never seen the reward of 1,000 swords many years ago. Naturally, they would be very curious. Ning Fan didn't know why the 3 treasure chests appeared, but he was good at gathering information. He secretly used his mind-reading technique and saw the reason from the hearts of some of the second-step female cultivators. It turned out that obtaining 1,000 swords in the trial of force would also allow one to be rewarded by the saint. This was truly an unexpected harvest. All living beings are trapped in a circle, the inside and the outside are unstable. It was like waking up from a dream, like dust, like this. The great Tao is vast, but it is humble. The weeds are scattered, but they bow their heads and are tenacious. The moment the ancient voice rang out, all the people of Dabi began to shout in unison, their voices filled with fervor. We welcome the descent of the sacred ancestors' will. The sacred ancestors' will. In this Dabi clan, the one who could be called a sacred ancestor was undoubtedly the herb-gatherer saint who was known as the Southern Medicine Saint. The saint was already dead. However, his will had turned into the rules of heaven and earth, remaining in the Supreme Pill's sacred region. This voice was produced by the saint's will in heaven and earth. The saint's will did not have any thoughts. Naturally, it would not talk to anyone. It just operated like a machine to convey the reward to Ning Fan. The 3 treasure chests that were hovering in mid-air suddenly fell in front of Ning Fan. Then, the first treasure chest opened on its own with a cracking sound. According to the rules of the Dabi clan, obtaining 1,000 swords in the trial of force will allow the sacred ancestors' will to descend and reward you. This is your opportunity. Don't miss it. You can choose one of the rewards from the 3 heavenly layers of the sacred ancestor. You must be cautious. 4 of the 5 emperors of the Middle State spoke up and explained to Ning Fan. The one who did not speak was naturally Emperor Lu Tuo, who did not get along with Ning Fan. After the 4 emperors reminded Ning Fan, the ancient voice spoke again. My inheritance will only be passed down to those who are capable. Those who obtain 1,000 swords in the trial of force will be able to obtain my inheritance. This is the first reward. All of a sudden, everyone's eyes were focused on the first treasure chest. Those who had some understanding about the reward of 1,000 swords were secretly guessing what kind of reward Ning Fan would get. Those who did not know about the rewards of the sacred ancestor also gained some understanding about the rewards after the 4 emperors and the sacred ancestors will spoke up one after another. When the treasure chest was opened, the first thing that everyone saw was a dazzling golden lotus seat. This lotus seat was not some precious treasure. What made many immortals and Buddhas gasp was a section of golden lotus root that was floating on top of the lotus seat. The eyes of the 4 emperors flickered while Emperor Lu Tuo's expression darkened. He did not expect that the first reward that Ning Fan obtained would be such a supreme treasure. The golden lotus root of fortune. This item only existed in the legends of the Dabi clan. It was not meant to be eaten. Instead, it was meant to be used to reshape one's body. According to the ancient records of the Dabi clan, there was once an immortal venerated Buddha who destroyed his physical body and used the golden lotus root of fortune to reshape his bones, flesh and blood. The physical body that he obtained from the lotus root was incomparably strong. Even though that person's cultivation base was still at the immortal venerated realm, his physical body alone was already enough to defeat the immortal king realm experts. He could even fight against a quasi-emperor realm expert without falling into a disadvantageous position. Of course, this item also had its drawbacks. Even though the physical body of the lotus root was incomparably strong, it would make one's cultivation base stagnate forever. Once the physical body of the lotus root is formed, it would mean that one would no longer be able to increase his cultivation base through cultivation. It could be considered as reaching the end of the path of cultivation in this lifetime. However, these drawbacks were not really a big problem. Most of the cultivators would not be able to reach the quasi-emperor realm in their lifetime. Having a physical body that was comparable to that of a quasi-emperor realm expert was already enough for them. They did not expect to continue to advance and attain the true immortal emperor realm. Even those old monsters who aspired to attain the immortal emperor realm would not look down on this item. Why must the body of the main body be made into the physical body of the lotus root? He could totally make a second primordial spirit and give it a strong physical body. In this way, he would directly have an incomparably loyal subordinate of a quasi-emperor realm expert. Moreover, it would not affect his main body's future achievements. Even if he does not create a physical body for his second primordial spirit, he could totally create a puppet with the physical body of a lotus root. A quasi-emperor realm lotus root puppet was also very strong. Ning Fan's gaze fell upon the golden lotus root. He was extremely tempted. This item was not only recorded in the ancient books of De Bei but also in the ancient books of the Four Heavens. It was also mentioned in the inherited memories of ancient chaos. If I choose this item and use it to create a puppet with the strength of a quasi-emperor realm lotus root, it would indeed be a good choice. However, he could not make a decision now because there were still 2 more boxes that he had yet to open. This is the second item. As soon as the saint's voice fell, the second box was also opened. The golden light dispersed. The item inside the box was a treasured pestle that was surrounded by dark purple flames. The intimidating chi of a low-grade innate magic treasure shook everyone's heart, including the immortal emperors. It's actually a innate magic treasure. It's impossible. No one has ever received a innate magic treasure from the previous saints. What kind of ability does this young man have to be so lucky? This time, Emperor Lu Tuo could no longer hold back the irritation in his heart and spoke out of jealousy. His jealousy was also reasonable. To an immortal emperor, the number of innate magic treasures they had was almost equivalent to their combat power. The majority of immortal emperors only had 1 Xiantian treasure. Think about it, if you and the other immortal emperor had the same cultivation, and you had 2 Xiantian treasures while the other only had 1, it was obvious who had the upper hand. Unfortunately, Khanate treasures could only be found by luck. Immortal emperors who had 2 Khanate treasures were too few. Emperor Lu Tuo had been searching for innate magic treasures for many years. Today, he only had 2 of them and one of them was even a defective one. As for Ning Fan, his bone spirit was still weak and his cultivation base was also low. However, he had the chance to obtain an innate magic treasure. It really made him a little jealous. Emperor Luo Tuo was not the only one. Even the other 4 emperors' faces stiffened. Clearly, they did not expect Ning Fan to be so lucky. It would be a lie if they said they were not envious of him. Previously, when they saw the golden lotus root of fortune in the first treasure chest, the eyes of the monarchs merely lit up, but they weren't too tempted. After all, quasi-emperor puppets were not very useful in a battle between immortal emperors. However, innate magical treasures were different. They were too precious. Even if it was only a Xiantian lower grade, it was definitely a treasure that could only be found by luck. On the other hand, Ning Fan's eyes were not as passionate when he looked at the second treasure chest. He did not lack innate magical treasures. What he lacked was the cultivation base to use innate magical treasures. This innate treasure pestle seemed to be a powerful offensive magic treasure. Unfortunately, it was just a low-grade innate magical treasure. It was completely incomparable to his realm drowning water bottle. Even if he chooses this innate magical treasure, it would be difficult for him to unleash its full power with his current cultivation base. On the contrary, it was not as practical as the golden lotus root. It's still more convenient to have a quasi-emperor realm expert as a helper. At least, I don't need to fight personally in the future and I will be able to defeat all immortal king realm experts. Just as Ning Fan's mind was racing, the third treasure chest was also opened. Unlike the previous 2 treasure chests, the third treasure chest did not emit any dazzling golden light after it was opened. The chest was empty except for a shabby wooden token. There were no words carved on the wooden token, nor was there any chi of a magic treasure. On the surface, it looked just like an ordinary wooden token. However, could an ordinary wooden token be used as a reward for a sage realm expert? Even if Ning Fan was an idiot, he would also know that this wooden token had some special purpose. Of course, he did not know what it was used for. The immortals and Buddhas on the high platform wore blank expressions. Only a few of them knew the purpose of this item. On the high platform, only the 5 emperors of the middle province knew the origin of this item. Below the high platform, there was only Tu Huang who had concealed his strength. His brows were knitted and his expression was a little solemn. At this moment, the 5 emperors of the Middle Province were staring at the shabby wooden token in the third treasure chest fervently. All of them knew what this item was. However, none of them came to explain the preciousness of this item to Ning Fan. Among the 5 emperors, none of them were willing to let Ning Fan choose this item. This item was too precious. It was so precious that it made them jealous. It was so precious that it could allow Ning Fan to break through to the immortal emperor realm within a few years. How could this young man obtain such a precious treasure? From the straightforward expressions of the 5 emperors of the Middle Province, Ning Fan could read the meaning behind it. He could not help but frown. What exactly is this wooden token? Judging from the expressions of the 5 emperors, it is definitely more precious than a low-grade innate magical treasure. This wooden token has a name in the Holy Mountain. It's called the Blood Exchange Token. If you bring this item to the Holy Mountain, you will be able to obtain the inheritance of the saint blood of our clan's saint ancestor. You will be able to exchange your own blood with the genuine diluted saint blood. Once the inheritance is successful, you will obtain a cultivation base that is comparable to an immortal emperor realm expert within a few years. In the future, your cultivation base will improve by leaps and bounds. Tu Huang's voice suddenly resounded in Ning Fan's mind. Ning Fan's expression remained unchanged, but his heart was filled with astonishment. The inheritance of the saint blood. The genuine diluted saint blood. Breaking through to the immortal emperor realm within a few years. This small wooden token actually has such a function. No wonder the 5 emperors of the Middle Province on the high platform would rather die than explain this item. It must be because this item is too precious and they are unwilling to let me choose it. Even if the saint blood has been diluted, it is still a legendary item. It actually exists. The temptation of breaking through to the immortal emperor realm within a few years is too great. Presumably, there are very few people in this world who can resist this temptation. However, Ning Fan was not too tempted by it. The matters of cultivation were usually fair. There were bound to be gains and losses. With such a great benefit, there must be a greater disadvantage behind it. He had no doubt about this. I suppose this item has its disadvantages. Ning Fan's expression was calm, but he was secretly transmitting his voice to Tu Huang. He. The disadvantages are indeed not small. In the past, Light Buddha obtained the blood exchange token as a reward just like you. With his innate potential, he shouldn't be qualified to become the strongest expert of the Holy Mountain. Today, however, he has become the strongest expert of the Holy Mountain. What a great title. What a pity. Does his cultivation base really belong to him? Tu Huang paused for a while, as if it was related to a secret. He did not want to talk about it anymore. However, this was already enough for Ning Fan to imagine. Did Light Buddha, the strongest expert of the Holy Mountain, come to the Holy Mountain because he chose the blood exchange token? What does it mean that his cultivation base does not belong to him? Ning Fan could not help but recall the scheme of old ancestor Yin Mo in the desolate land. Chills ran down his spine. Could it be that the dignified Light Buddha, the strongest expert of the Holy Mountain, has also fallen into someone's scheme? Could it be that this blood exchange token is a huge trap? Ning Fan unnoticeably glanced at Tu Huang. His eyes met Tu Huang's, who had changed his name to Qing Ling with a faint smile. Qing Ling's knife-scarred husband in name immediately scolded Qing Ling. At the same time, he glared at Ning Fan a few times, believing that his wife had an affair with the great devil Ning. Ning Fan was speechless. Then, he withdrew his gaze. He was too lazy to watch the little drama between the young couple. Inwardly, he was thinking about Tu Huang's warning. Is it possible that Tu Huang is lying? The purpose of this shabby wooden token is not what she said at all. Or perhaps, her words are 30% true and 70% false. The purpose is true but the disadvantages are false, or perhaps, her words are true but she is still hiding something from me. Ning Fan did not know whether he should trust Tu Huang or not. Judging from the current situation, not only did this woman not harm him, but she even gave him an illusion night pearl which could temporarily suppress Xing Huan's recovery of his cultivation base. however, is a temporary display of goodwill really good? Or perhaps, this woman is more scheming than others. Looking at the 3 treasure chests, Ning Fan hesitated for the first time. His hesitation was about the first and third treasure chests. As for the second treasure chest, he completely ignored it. The impression that the Great Humble Clan gave Ning Fan was that it was full of illusions and deceptions. It was a truth that appeared calm on the surface but was terrifyingly deep inside. After thinking about it for a long time, Ning Fan still could not completely trust Tu Huang. Thus, he chose to partially trust Tu Huang and did not plan to choose the blood exchange token. Even though the blood exchange token had great benefits, it certainly had its disadvantages. Compared to the blood exchange token, which could forcibly increase one's cultivation base, Ning Fan preferred to believe in the cultivation base that he obtained through arduous cultivation step by step. Have you made your choice? The ancient voice reverberated between heaven and earth and asked. I choose the first treasure chest. Ning Fan answered indifferently. All of a sudden, discussions broke out everywhere. Each of the immortals and Buddhas on the high platform had an interesting expression on their faces. Even the 5 emperors of the middle state were no exception. The 5 emperors of the middle state firmly believed that Ning Fan did not understand the value of the wooden token. That was why he did not choose it. It was not strange for a mere external cultivator to not know the greatest secret of the Great Humble Clan and the existence of the blood exchange token. However, even if he did not choose the third chest, he should have chosen the second chest. In the hearts of most people, the second chest was far more valuable than the first chest. Innate magic treasures were things that even immortal emperors regarded as important as their lives. The golden lotus root of fortune, on the other hand, was only sought after by experts below the immortal emperor realm. The difference between the two was obvious. Why was there a need to consider? However, Ning Fan actually did not choose the innate magic treasure but the golden lotus root of fortune. His intelligence is really unparalleled. A large group of people of the Great Humble Clan who were not very smart were secretly laughing at Ning Fan's stupidity. Emperor Lu Tua, on the other hand, did not hide the disdain in his heart at all. He burst into laughter. Of course, his laughter was mocking Ning Fan. His heart also felt much better because of Ning Fan's choice. Whether Ning Fan chose the blood exchange token or the innate magic treasure, it would make him jealous to death. However, if Ning Fan chose the golden lotus root of fortune, it would make him feel much better. Hee. This young man has made a wrong choice. Ning Fan did not bother to pay attention to the ridicule of the others. If those people knew that he had the mid-grade innate water realm bottle and even the heaven-opening treasure, they would not make fun of him anymore. Since he was at a different height, the scenery he saw would naturally be different as well. There was no need for him to explain anything to mediocre people. To him, the golden lotus root of fortune was the most practical item. At least, it was the most practical item he had at his current stage. As for the growth of his cultivation base in the future, would he still need to worry about not having innate magic treasures to use? In his life of cultivation, he had never lacked magic treasures. If he lacked magic treasures, he would snatch them. After he obtained the golden lotus root of fortune, the other 2 chests disappeared together with the ancient voice as if they had never existed. As the reward given by the sacred ancestor ended, the trial of strength was also considered to have officially come to an end. Looking at the score of over 40,000 on the scoreboard, Ning Fan smiled faintly. He had already obtained such a high score in the trial of strength. As long as his performance in the trial of illusion is not too bad, it should be enough for him to squeeze into the top 3. It would not be difficult for him to obtain the South Sea spring water. After that, he could use the South Sea spring water to exchange for the information that the 100 Flowers Empress mentioned. After Ning Fan left the stage, the storm calmed down. Only then did some of the experts of the Great Humble Clan remember that Ning Fan seemed to have even killed the examiners of the trial of strength. It seemed like they had yet to pursue this matter. However, because of the reward given by the sacred ancestor, everyone's attention was attracted by the reward given by the sacred ancestor, causing them to forget about the punishment. The rules of the second round of the mausoleum seizing competition naturally did not state that the participants could not kill the examiners. However, this rule seemed to be common sense. No one would kill an examiner, right? A few of Lu Tuo's disciples whispered to Emperor Lu Tuo as if they were reminding him. Emperor Lu Tuo nodded his head. Just as he was about to find an excuse to give Ning Fan some trouble, Emperor Tian Du spoke first. The trial of strength has already ended. You don't have to mention these trivial matters anymore. As soon as he said that, Emperor Lu Tuo's expression naturally darkened. It would not be good for him to find trouble with Ning Fan anymore. Inwardly, he was even more certain that Emperor Tian Du had a close relationship with Ning Fan. Luckily, Emperor Lu Tuo was very confident in his disciple Sha Bailu. He firmly believed that Sha Bailu could kill Ning Fan in the trial of illusion. As soon as he thought of that, his expression turned better. Just by looking at the results, Ning Fan's result in the trial of strength was very heaven-defying. However, in the eyes of those with discerning eyes, Ning Fan just knew some kind of secret technique to recover the strength of his physical body. That was why his endurance was better than others in a battle of physical strength. Endurance did not mean combat power. Many duels would end in a very short period of time. The duels that really tested one's endurance were usually when both parties were on par with each other and it was hard to tell who would win. Emperor Lu Tuo deeply understood that once his disciple goes all out, he could even kill a second tribulation immortal venerable. Putting aside the fact that Ning Fan was not in his peak condition, even if his cultivation base was not sealed, Emperor Lu Tuo did not think that Ning Fan could survive from Sha Bailu's hands with some small tricks. As soon as he thought that Ning Fan would die, Emperor Lu Tuo's anger from the destruction of his fire spirit finally subsided a little. Unfortunately, before his mood could improve, Buddha Sob Emperor's neutral voice made his face turn gloomy again. Don't forget about our bet. That half of your fierce jade beast has been lost to me. Why don't you hand it over to me after this matter is over? You can't go back on your words. Buddha Sob Emperor said with a smug smile. Humph. Don't worry. I'm willing to accept my loss. After this matter is over, I will naturally fulfill my promise. Emperor Lu Tuo gritted his teeth and said. Inwardly, he had already blamed Ning Fan for losing the half of his fierce jade fire spirit. If it wasn't because this young man's performance was too good, how could he possibly lose? Hateful brat. You won't be able to jump around for long. Corpse Devil is already dead. Since that's the case, I will overstep my authority and preside over the illusory trials. The illusory trials need to be carried out in groups of 3. I will give you the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the groups that fail to form 3 groups will be disqualified from participating in the illusory trials. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, I will open the gate of sealed realms that leads to the illusory trials. Emperor Tian Du's voice resounded in this place.